Is Putin?
Freestyle, it's been a while, you're juvenile, you are vile, Kyle, Kaleski. Is that a good freestyle? I think I'm done pretty much. That's pretty fire. As Gretchen Whitmer said. Yeah, I'm going in. Okay, so I don't have all these chats routed to the same place. I don't know how to do that. So the chat that should show up on screen is probably going to be the one from the full video, I assume. And it should be on Twitch, hypothetically, too. Okay, so it has my name as Jola there, so that worked. If anyone comments in the regular stream, I know there's no people here. Except Warren. Warren Entertainment. That's like a name I'd have on when I did shoe reviews back in the day. Jola Entertainment, Valuetainment. Oh, it makes all the names one color. I don't like that. I wonder if there's a way to fix that. It has Sam's name as one color too on the side. That's kind of annoying. I think I have this up here too. Okay. So that shows viewers on the regular stream. That's good to know. How's it going? How's it going with Sam Hanks? Now this seems quiet. Do I need to boost this audio now? Okay, if there's any audio issues, let me know. Great, thank you. The other screen I have on for this is this one. So this would be the main screen under this setup. Looks pretty decent on TikTok. I say TikTok, I mean YouTube Shorts. And it looks decent on the YouTube as well. So happy that's working. Have a Twitch stream up. This is mainly for technological practice because I've never done this before. Okay. I don't know how to tell if these views are actually real on the YouTube live. Okay, there's 12 concurrent on the live. Cool. Well, come over to the regular stream if you're on the live. I hate setting up the technology side of streaming. It's so terrible. It's my least favorite thing in the whole world. Okay. I think it all looks good so far.
Is Putin a dictator? And will you denounce Russia's involvement with tenant media?
Is Putin a dictator? Yeah, obviously, of course.
Well, I mean, what's a dictator?
Wait. Do we not feel like Putin? Wait, so is Putin not a dictator?
I don't know if he's a dictator. I'm not Russian. I don't really care.
Russia wants to invade its neighbors. Do you not think other countries have an obligation to help?
No.
Do you think that in World War II, do you think the United States should have stepped up to fight against Germany?
I think that the United States.
That's such an easy yes or no question. Should we have stepped up to fight against? It's such an easy yes or no question. Should the United States have stepped up to fight against?
I love these politics. So back in the day, I did a force the vote debate, which was the big topic in like 2021, I think, where all of the online Bernie bros wanted AOC and the squad to force a vote on Medicare for All. And withhold their vote for Nancy Pelosi's House leadership. And I would go against a bunch of these fake leftists or progressives who were very pro-Russia, very anti-America, they will come out and say anti-American stuff without thinking about literally anything, with using zero brain cells. But if you question them on Putin or Russia or any U.S. adversary, they need an entire encyclopedia entry so they can have any type of opinion on it. It's hilarious.
Germany. So we don't even know if we should have opposed the Nazis. Okay, I will call out people who I think take money from other countries and they don't declare it. People like who worked under Tenet Media, other people that are still operating in this media environment, people like yourself probably.
Sort of slander, that sort of slur right here in front of everybody, you're a piece of shit. And I speak for a lot of people when I say that.
I'm sure you do, and I'm sure they're all flying to Moscow right now. Yeah, I think that right now, I think one of the most important things in America, and I think for the world, is that we all kind of get back on the same page factually about stuff that's actually happened. So I think supporting Harris is important for a few key reasons. And I think the first one is that right now, the Conservative Party in the United States is completely and totally divorced from any type of factual reality. I think that the Democrats, whether you agree or disagree with their policies, are at least more in the real world than the Republicans are. If you want, you can look through the Dominion lawsuit against Fox News, where Fox News literally says over and over again, we're going to lie about the Dominion machines. They do lie about the Dominion machines. The reason why they do that is to keep up with the other false conservative media that's lying about the Dominion machines. And you can see this over and over and over again, whether it's all of the allegations of voter fraud, where Sidney Powell and Giuliani have said that they lied about it, whether it's Trump pushing voter fraud claims that he has been told over and over again are not true. Yeah, I just think that the fact that conservatives are no longer based in reality is a huge threat to really the world, because it makes it so we can't live in the same reality, so we can't even discuss policies, and instead we're wasting all of our time debating conspiracies. And that's, I think, one really good reason to support the Democratic Party. On policies, I think supporting the Democratic Party or the Harris candidacy is also important, because Trump has no policies. Every time he opens his mouth, he just says some random crazy stuff. He's talking about a 10%, 20% tariff on all imports. I don't even know if he fully knows what a tariff is. At times where we're worried about things like inflation, the idea of adding like 10 or 20% of a price tag onto every single good that you buy is absolutely insane. I think that in terms of economic policy or in terms of domestic policy, I think that the Democrats are much more able to get real stuff done rather than just kind of like pander to an audience. For example, Trump ran on building the wall. He had 4 years to build the wall. He didn't build the wall. He had Republicans in both halves of Congress. There's really no excuse for his failures other than blaming the people around him, which I don't know why he wouldn't just do that again the next 4 years that he's in. Spoiler alert. He will do that again. You compare Donald Trump's, saying we're going to do something about China to Biden passing the CHIPS Act because he was able to actually be an effective leader and get Congress to legislate an actual bill. Or if you look at how the Democrats tried to tackle the border problem, where they had a bill and Trump shot it down because he wants to keep the border open for election season, I think it's clear that the Democrats win when it comes to actual policy. And I think Donald Trump as an individual is an abhorrent, amoral, un-American, unpatriotic, treasonous person who tried to weaponize the DOJ. He tried to create fake slates of electors in order to overturn the electoral vote. He basically chair-led violence on January 6th to try to pressure legislators to not certify the vote. And he tried to subvert the peaceful transfer of power, only leaving when at multiple stops there were other people inside of the administration that basically stopped his attempt to, take over power in the United States to prevent the actual outcome of the last election from coming to fruition. So I think that Harris is a very, very easy choice over Trump, basically no matter which way you look at it. But yeah, that's my argument.
You got it. Thank you very much for that opening, Stephen. And folks, if it's your first time here at Modern Day Debate, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, as we have many more upcoming debates. And we're going to kick it over to Kim. Thanks for being with us, Kim. The floor is all yours for your opening as well.
Thank you. The reason why you should not vote for Kamala Harris, I think the biggest reason why you should not, is to protect democracy, the very thing that Democrats claim they're constantly trying to protect. Meanwhile, Vice President Kamala Harris ran for president in 2020. She ended up having to drop out early from the race before the first primary vote because her candidacy did not generate any significant support among the Democratic electorate.
No one cares what Kamala Harris did in 2020. It's 2024. The entire world is different. We're a pandemic and attempted coup of the U.S. government away from 2020. And Kamala was running in a Democratic primary where everyone was trying to be either Bernie Sanders or Joe Biden. And everyone ended up endorsing Joe Biden against Bernie Sanders. No one cares about Kamala's popularity as either vice president or her popularity as a Democratic candidate in 2020 against 15 different opponents.
There was a lack of enthusiasm. There was a lack of confidence in her leadership. Nonetheless, even without all of that support, she ended up being selected by party elites to be the vice president for Joe Biden. Furthermore, then what Democrats have done is they have squashed any any ounce of the ability to have an election. They squashed any candidates that were challenging Joe Biden, unlike Republicans who actually had a primary, trying to primary Donald Trump. We saw numerous candidates going after Donald Trump. Nikki Haley ran a very fierce campaign against him. So did Ron DeSantis. Meanwhile, Democrats actually buried any possible counter to any alternatives to Joe Biden. They then decided to take the guy out to pasture, essentially pushing him aside against his will. They then had no open primary in order to nominate Kamala Harris as the candidate, and they instead.
Thank you for the raid on Twitch. I'm on my wrong account, and I don't know if you're doing it ironically. But I'm streaming on all the wrong accounts because I'm using Streamlabs for the first time. But if you want to come hang out in YouTube, I'll drop the YouTube link in chat.
Once again, in the same very way that they made her the vice president candidate, is that the party elites from a very top-down structure without the support of the American people, without the support of their Democratic voters, decided to anoint Kamala Harris as the candidate. If you care about democracy, even if you like Kamala Harris, to support that type of anti-democratic behavior is signing off on this happening over and over and over again. To agree to this, maybe you like Kamala Harris today, maybe she is the person that you think you agree with her policies, but the fact that Democrats have done it in this very undemocratic way, you're paving the way for this sort of authoritarian top-down form of leadership that the next time the candidate that you don't like could end up being the one nominated. Although I will say that.
By the way, today Donald Trump was advocating for anyone who criticizes the Supreme Court to be put in jail, along with every member of the media, along with any person who disagrees with him. Donald Trump is advocating that he has the direct authority to put anyone who he disagrees with in jail, anyone who violates the First Amendment on Donald Trump's terms, at least.
The vast majority of the voters do not like Kamala Harris, so she is not a particularly popular candidate. She has the lowest approval rating of any vice president ever in the history of this nation since polling has come out, with a net negative rating of -17. So, Kamala, if you care about democracy, if that's something that you genuinely want to preserve in this nation, then you cannot support the way that the Democratic Party has gone forward nominating their candidate.
Thank you very much for that opening as well. Folks, want to let you know we're going to have roughly 1 hour and 45 minutes for tonight. So do get your questions for the Q&A in early. You can do that either tagging me in the live chat with @ModernDayDebate, or you can use the super chat that will push your question to the top of the list. We don't want insults toward the guests. We want sincere questions. Thank you very much. Floor is all yours, Destiny and Kim.
Yeah, I guess the first thing is, do we agree that Donald Trump thought that Vice President Pence could choose him as the winner of the last election?
I don't know what Donald Trump thought when it came to that. I think that there are some legalities with how our country runs that do allow for certain procedures. A lot of them are really wonky and they get into the weeds. So there is maybe a possibility that he thought something could happen, but
okay. Are you aware that Trump and Eastman wanted Pence to break the law in Congress, the Electoral Count Act? They wanted him to break that law to choose Donald Trump to remain president.
Once again, I'm not sure if that was breaking the law or if that was using an obscure procedural rule that would allow for something along those lines. That has been debated by experts. I am not an expert on that, but experts do debate that.
To be clear, experts don't debate it. Are you aware that Eastman himself said on first pass...
How do you know? Why do you say that experts don't debate that when they do debate
because
that?
There are none. Find them and bring them to me and I will destroy all of them. No real expert. No, there are none.
That there are any experts that debate whether or not there are some procedural rules that would allow for certain things to happen during those procedures. You don't think that there's any expert out there that was arguing that? Because
I'm sure you can find like one person from Springfield, Ohio to tell you literally anything. Is there like one expert to tell you this? Is that the standard now? We need one expert? And if one expert out of 99% of experts, if 1% of them disagrees, then it's valid to argue?
I heard numerous experts saying that there was this, obscure rule that would allow something like that to happen.
Maybe from other countries, but not from the United States. No, there were no serious experts arguing this. That's why Eastman himself said that if it went to the Supreme Court, he said they'd probably lose 7-2, and then he said they'd probably lose 9-0.
7-2. So 2 of the Supreme Court justices. Do you not think that they know the laws of this country?
Eastman was asked on First Pass, do you think that they would win in the Supreme Court? And he said, we would probably lose 7-2. And then he admitted they would lose 9-0.
Yeah, I'm trying out all the different streams. Alley Cattails. Yeah, Alley. So I have Twitch up. I'm gonna have TikTok up, but I need to get verified again. To do that, and also I have the YouTube the shorts. I'm gonna try doing like Instagram and Facebook, but I have no idea how those work. But I'm just like doing stuff to try it out.
But actually, we don't know because it never went to the Supreme Court. But had it, maybe it would lose 7-2. I'm not saying it would have won, but the fact that there maybe would have been 2 or 3 justices that would have ruled in favor show that there is an obscure rule that potentially could have been used that Trump thought that would be possible.
If you're the progenitor, if you're the originator of the idea, and even you think that you would lose in the Supreme Court, but maybe 2 people will side with you, that doesn't seem like an idea that's hotly contested by experts.
Experts clearly, if 2 of them would agree to it, then maybe you wouldn't win, but it still doesn't mean that the rule isn't worth challenging. There's plenty of cases that lose in the Supreme Court. It doesn't make them not worth challenging.
Do you think it would be in line with American democracy for the president to tell the vice president to ignore the will of the voters and choose who the next president is going to be?
I think that if the will of the voters was ignored by the electoral process and if the vote was rigged, then yes, absolutely, it would be the responsibility of the president of the United States to actually put that forward to protect democracy in this country. Depends on how you look at it. If it were Donald Trump who subverted the election and Kamala Harris actually wins and you believe in your mind or you know for sure that she actually won, wouldn't you want them to challenge that? Wouldn't you want them to try to do whatever they could to preserve democracy? The only reason
I have not played that game, Static Shattuck, but I did play Wulong. You ever play Wulong? It's like a Dark Souls clone.
And you're against it is because of the person. And you've got to look deeper than that. It's got to be about the actual process, not the person. Donald Trump might not be your guy or my guy, but nonetheless, the process needs to be protected.
Yes, I agree with that. You already said that you don't know the process, so I don't know why you're appealing to the process. Donald Trump did try to challenge the election with 64 different court cases. He won one of them in an inconsequential Pennsylvania case that didn't really impact much of the vote at all. He lost the other 63. He was shot down in the Supreme Court a number of times, and he was shot down when he tried to present false evidence to state legislatures a number of times. Everywhere that he tried the process, he lost, and that ended up with him begging Pence to basically just choose him as the winner of the election. At what point can we not say this is probably anti-democratic?
How is that anti-democratic? He went through the process. If you challenge things in court and you lose in court, that's still using the process. Just because you lost doesn't mean that you're doing anything illegal.
It was illegal to break the ECA. He lost in the courts. That's why he told Pence, I need you to break the law and choose me to be president. That was the process. He went through the courts and he lost. He didn't like the result. And then he asked Pence to choose him to be the winner of the election. This is anti-democratic.
I believe that that is part of the, if that's part of the process, that's part of the process.
Was it part of the process when they had people forge in 7 different states that they were the electors and that they wanted to vote for Trump?
Again, there are a lot of rules with the process. In fact, when the Democrats were upset that Donald Trump had won in 2016, they pursued similar tactics.
Can you name a single state where they had a false slate of electors made without the approval of the state legislature? No.
I believe Colorado actually in 2016 did put forward some alternate electors, or even said that they wanted to have a compromise candidate send electors to do the election and instead put Mitt Romney in as a compromise candidate. I remember this very clearly.
Hypothesizing on what a state legislature said that maybe they want to do, maybe they did, is far different than Trump's campaign. That's great that there was a push for it. That's great that some people might have pushed for it. Donald Trump and his underlings falsified 7 different slates of electors for Pence to choose on January 6th.
Does Kim Iverson say that she's a progressive anymore? Does she say like she's on the left, or is she fully just like a centrist, but actually far right person now? Because I know she was very Bernie or bust last time I saw her, and I assume she got worse.
It's anti-democratic. What could be less democratic than trying to change the outcome of the election of a state because you don't like the result?
Do you believe that the election results in Venezuela were accurate?
I'm not Venezuelan. I don't care about the results in Venezuela, but we had ways to challenge the results in the United States. Breaking the law and having the vice president choose you to be the president again, surely you can see the conflict of interest there, right? The guy that is president right now is saying that the election was rigged when he's running for election again. I mean, like, why would we trust this person who lost in every other forum?
In 2016, Democrats believed that the elections were rigged.
But Hillary, what's the difference though? In 2016, Hillary conceded that night. Donald Trump said stop the count and tried to win the election early.
Did Hillary really concede,
Yep,
or
she did.
She conceded and then continued to undermine behind the scenes Donald Trump's presidency, continue to delegitimize it, continue to go after him numerous times over and over after 2016. I don't think.
Oh, how dare she go after Donald Trump politically? That's basically trying to do a coup. That's essentially a coup. But Kim Iverson's page right now, are Muslim immigrants destroying Europe? ? The hidden agenda no one's talking about. I'm not really sure what that would be about exactly. Personal freedom versus forcing help for mental illness on the streets. Grassroots revolution, building an anti-war political movement. Dr. Jill Stein. Okay, you were right. Yep, Green Party. And I saw in the last few polls that when you took Green parties into account, so like Trump versus Harris, Harris actually led by more when third parties were added. So Jill Stein and Cornel West are somehow taking more votes away from Trump in the recent polls. And that could mean that most of the people voting for Stein and Cornel West, they're not very serious voters to begin with. So if they ask, do you have to vote for Kamala or Trump? It's an anti-Kamala vote. It's not really for progress or for progressive issues, because if you're for those things, you're voting for Kamala Harris. But it's mostly just people who are anti-Democrat. But those could be outlier polls, of course. But it's been a really interesting thing to see in the data for the past few weeks.
However you want. What could be less democratic than Donald Trump telling Pence, I want you to make me the president again. I'm not happy with these court results. I'm not happy with what's going on. I need you to choose me again to be president.
I don't think that's actually a clear characterization of what really happened.
It is absolutely what happened. It is
From
verbatim.
your perspective.
No,
but
from the perspective of every single person involved. That's why Eastman, after it failed, was emailing Giuliani saying like, hey, you remember that pardon list? I think I do need to be stuck on that. I think I'm going to need some.
Here, I'm gonna put breaking news in my titles and see if that helps at all.
Pardons preemptively, just in case. This is why Giuliani and Sidney Powell are being sued. It's why they've admitted that they lied about the voter fraud. It's why a lot of them are being disbarred now. Yes, this all happened. It's a very public record, very open testimonies under oath. Yes, all of this happened. So do you agree that Donald Trump telling the vice president, can you make me president again? That's like the least democratic thing you could ever do in a democracy.
I think that if you think that the election...
Yeah, Green Party is on the left of their rhetoric, Dante, but the Green Party is not on the left of actual progress and organizing. And many of the Green Parties more anti-Democrat than they are actual organizing and getting political power for progressive causes. And many people who are voting Green right now on the internet and wherever else are like Jimmy Dore, Kim Iverson. These are people who are conspiracy theorists. They cover for Vladimir Putin and Donald Trump and other dictators around the world or wannabe dictators. And they have not organized for real political issues or progressive issues at all in the past 12 years. So that's usually who I'm talking about when I say they aren't on the left. It's because they aren't really, a part of progressive change in any way. And they actively go against any possible change that is happening, because if we're not going to completely change the U.S. to a communist utopia today, they want the U.S. to burn to the ground instead of having incremental progress. I prefer incremental progress and some form of progress. I don't like fascism, so I usually disagree with them.
Was rigged. I think that it is your responsibility to protect democracy.
So you think that Donald Trump should have tried to steal the election if he thinks that
I actually don't think they're right or left. I think that's the main point. They're not even like a third position. It's just like, they're off the map somewhere. They're just kind of angry. I think that they're angry and chaotic is a better definition. Anyone can be progressive just by saying Green New Deal 50 times in a row.
Forgive me. I just want to, I want to give you a chance to each of you to get any last thoughts on this, but then I want to redirect us back to Kamala Harris per se.
Okay.
Okay, yeah. I just think when we talk about democracies, the Democratic Party or the Republican Party could literally right now say, oh, here's my candidate. We're going to put this guy forward, and then you guys can vote for them or not in the general election. Both parties have a right to do that. They're private parties. They can do whatever they want, basically. The idea that Kamala Harris, who was the vice president, who was on the ticket, that delegates that switch from Biden to Kamala Harris is somehow anti-democratic. You don't have to vote for them in the general if you don't want to. Nobody's forcing you to do that. But somehow Donald Trump telling the vice president, hey, I need you to just pick me as the president. I need you to pick me and ignore, the will of the actual voters of the American population and just pick me to be the president again because I'm not happy with the results of the last election. That is the least democratic thing you could ever do in a democracy.
I think it was to delay in order to allow for more counting. I don't think it was just install me as president again and anoint me as president.
It was.
Well, if you're a libertarian, Dante, then yeah, that's a difficult one because you can't really organize for much change as a true libertarian, because true libertarians are for like some type of anarchist system with zero foundation of a government or any type of power structures at all, which ends up in some type of like militia, military force where like Amazon's gonna have a military and Amazon's gonna be allowed to just like kill all the peasants because there's no government to protect human rights or anything. So if you're truly a libertarian, it's hard to talk about like organizing if you're a libertarian in the normal sense of the word, unless if you just mean you like freedom.
Instead was a tactic to delay in order for the challenges to go through.
Oh, taxation is extortion libertarian. So you live on the island, the coconut island.
The challenges had gone through and they'd all lost. All 64 cases were resolved by then. They had nothing live. Everything was dead. It was completely gone. That's why they wanted him to just choose him to be president again during the January 6th counting ceremony.
Yeah, let me know how the YouTube Shorts stream is. I'm like trying to figure out how to do it good. Because I don't usually do that. My channel is being spread in a bunch of different directions because I'm not used to doing it this way, but we're figuring it out. So let me know how to make it more visually appealing on the shorts section of YouTube.
Forgive me, Kim. I'm sure you've got a round in the chamber ready to fire, but I do want to just redirect us just back to Kamala Harris per se.
Okay, so regarding Kamala Harris, it is an undemocratic process to anoint the next person, even if the Democratic Party is allowed to do this because they are a private company. I understand that the courts have ruled in that way. Shouldn't that bother you? If you are somebody who actually wants to protect democracy, it doesn't matter if these are private companies, if these are private corporations. They're supposed to be championing and standing for democracy. And in fact, that is something that the Democratic Party claims that they are holding the torch for, is democracy. Yet what they do is they completely undermine the voters. Kamala Harris has the lowest rating ever of any vice president in the history of this country. And yet they anointed her as vice president without even an open primary. They didn't have an open primary, nor did.
These are all Fox News Facebook talking points, by the way. I hear my right-wing Facebook friends repeat this over and over again. She was such an unpopular vice president. How is she popular now? I don't understand it.
They have an open convention that would have allowed at least the electors to vote for other people. They didn't even.
You want a Thomas Jefferson idea for America. Remember what Bob Marley said, all governments upon the face of the earth are illegal. Well, just like I would say to a communist, this is the world we live in. So, in the current system of government, even if you don't believe in them, if you believe it's not moral, in the same way where a communist might think capitalism is immoral, you should still advocate for things that will make the world better. I assume you do. I would assume you would have that mindset.
Even allow that. They just said, Kamala Harris is our person. This is a person you're going to have to vote for. And they didn't give you a choice. That is completely against democracy.
I have a choice.
If you're on computer, the YouTube Shorts is gonna look terrible. The phone might look a little bit better. So let me know if you're here, Allie, how it looks for YouTube Shorts. If I should adjust anything. I know it's gonna be hard to view regardless because of how it is, but
completely against democracy.
I have a choice. I can vote for whoever I want in the general election. So you're completely wrong there. The goal of the party is to put forth a candidate that is the most likely to win the election. I think that the Democratic Party choosing the person who is on the ticket that won more votes in any presidential election in all of history is probably better than trying to have an open primary and having us devolve into a crazy, shit show for a month trying to figure out who the next candidate is going to be. I think the DNC choosing Kamala Harris probably gives them the best chance to win in the general, and I'll be voting for Kamala Harris because she was part of the ticket that all the other Democrats voted for on the last election. If you're not happy with that or if you don't like that, that's fine, but it's not anti-democratic because nobody is forcing you to vote that ticket. If you want, vote for somebody else or just don't vote at all or have a protest vote or whatever, and the DNC would probably never do that again. The idea that it was anti-democratic for the DNC to pick the path that they wanted to put forth who they felt was the best candidate, which traditionally they do with the delegate process or an open primary, but this time because of extenuating circumstances, they just went with the vice president who was already on the ticket. I think to call that anti-democratic is silly. There's nothing anti-democratic about that. Nobody's forcing you to vote for Kamala in the general election.
Oh, how else are you going to vote? Who would you vote for then? Who are your options?
I could not vote. I could vote for Trump. I could vote for Jill Stein or the Libertarian candidate. You vote for whoever you want to vote for. It's the United States of America.
So you don't think that the party that is saying we are the party for democracy and then completely subverting that democracy and not even listening to the will of the Democratic voters and instead just force feeding them a candidate, you think that that is fine? That's democracy.
Standing for democracy is not what you do inside of a company. Democracy is not what happens in the McDonald's manager's office. Democracy is what we do to protect the institutions of the United States of America while we're expressing our will through the structures.
I would probably say, and Dante just said, you used to be able to pay taxes via cannabis plants. And I would also say to anyone who has any issues with the presidency, and I'll repeat this over and over and over again, but if you look for democracy in the presidency, you are going to be very upset. Democracy happens in every other race but the presidency. If anyone in these circles cared at all about organizing, about doing city council races, statewide races, even Congress and Senate at the national level or federal level, that's where you have democracy. The presidency is literally just picking like which party you'd rather have in charge, essentially. Personality matters a little bit, but what matters much more is what the overall party makeup looks like throughout the United States. And you could do ranked voice in cities, you could do it in states, you could do different things in like Maine and Nebraska with their electoral systems. Anyone that just like wakes up during a big year election and is like, I'm doing a protest vote for Jill Stein instead of Harris or whatever, that person just wants attention, most likely, because they are not serious about political organizing.
Of our government. The Democratic Party, as a private party, their goal is to put up the candidate that they think can win best. When the Democratic Party talks about protecting democracy, they're not talking about the internal primary process, how they,
Yeah, and what Destiny just said there is really good. Essentially, the Democratic Party is taking advice from the voters on what candidate should be put forward, and they ended up picking the vice president nominee for Biden for the candidacy because there was not enough time for an open primary. So when making the recommendation, the voters said, hey, we want Joe Biden. The party still chose, Biden's successor that was in his administration, who would have been president if Joe Biden died or could not be president for some reason. And yeah, they are choosing their representative. The DNC is a private party. We should change that system. But right now, there's a much bigger battle to be had. And politics at the national level is not going to change things. I saw someone say that you need to start at the top. The change happens from the top in the executive. Change does not happen at the top. It never has. The only change that can happen from the top very quickly is destruction. Things can go bad very quickly with a bad executive, with a bad president. So we'd be worried about Trump because he can ruin everything, and he wants to put people in jail who disagree with him. But Harris, even if you don't love her policies, you can still change her policies through pressuring her in the political process and democracy. It does work. There's a reason there's so much money being spent right now.
Put delegates to different candidates. They're talking about defending democracy in the United States of America as part of the U.S. government. So their goal should be to put up the strongest candidate. There aren't a ton of people in the Democratic Party that hate Kamala Harris and are mad that they put her up. There are some extreme people, or there are some outsiders that are trying to say that it should be different, but Kamala was part of the most winning ticket in all of presidential history. If anything, I think I'd be more upset if I was a Republican and I saw that Donald Trump didn't even debate the other Republican candidates because he was so scared of now, as we've seen, being exposed as a delusional, insane old man that can't even hold his composure on stage. Donald Trump didn't have a single debate with Haley or with DeSantis, and you're going to say that process was somehow more democratic? No, they're private parties, but the Republican Party can choose their nominee however they want as well. I don't care. It's
yeah, that's a good point too, Cloud. Within the Democratic primary process, all throughout America, delegates are chosen to go and vote at the Democratic National Convention. I don't know the exact number because there are a lot of them, but there's delegates and superdelegates, and delegates are elected. So, for example, I could have ran to be a DNC delegate. I know people who were DNC delegates, and these are sort of like representatives, for these different areas of the country that go to the Democratic National Convention. So those like 10,000 people who are Democratic delegates who were elected by Democrats, made the decision. They went and voted on behalf. They represented their constituents to vote for Kamala Harris being the nominee. And that happened almost instantly. So the party did function in a democratic nature, more of a representative democracy, which I don't know why Republicans are complaining, because they are called Republicans. They do not like democracy. It's in their name. They never wanted a democracy or anything resembling that. But yeah, the democratic process, did go as was intended when Joe Biden dropped out of the race.
They decided to actually listen to voters. That's how they did it. They decided to let people vote and decide. Nikki Haley put up a fierce campaign. So did Ron DeSantis. So did many others. And ultimately, the voters decided.
Yeah, to be a delegate, there's races held. I can look up what time of the year they're held. But yeah, you just run for them, and you can vote on who the Democratic delegate is. Thank you for subscribing on YouTube, EK. But yeah, I can look up more rules about that.
Decided that they didn't care to hear a debate between Donald Trump or Ron DeSantis or Donald Trump and Nikki Haley. The voters decided, not the top-down elites sitting in a back room deciding who was going to be their best candidate. They didn't really want Donald Trump. There was a lot of internal chatter inside of the Republican Party not really wanting Donald Trump, but ultimately they did allow the voters to decide. So you're saying that in order to protect democracy, so you're saying in order to protect democracy, it is totally fine to not allow the democratic process with the people in order to protect democracy. So then what in your mind is democracy?
It's not how private parties put forth their candidate.
What's democracy?
Democracy is a very broad idea that expresses different forms of government that usually involve some form of the population voting. And in the United States,
what would they vote on?
We could vote on a presidential candidate. We could vote on legislators and lawmakers. We could vote on city council people. We could do direct referendums to vote for policies. I mean,
so is it a democracy if, let's say, both parties just decide that they're going to nominate the same exact?
Thank you for subscribing on YouTube, someone else. I don't know how to say your name, but thank you. And by the way, Trump also today, I know there's a libertarian debate happening in the YouTube chat right now. Trump today literally just said that I think we should pay off the national debt and a little bit of Bitcoin. $35 trillion. How about we just put that on a Bitcoin and pay off the national debt? We're gonna transfer the national debt onto Bitcoin debt instead. Or I don't know if he's making an actual point by saying that. Does Trump mean anything when he says that? When Donald Trump says we're gonna get rid of the national debt using a little bit of Bitcoin, is there a theoretical way, or is there actually a theoretical way to use Bitcoin to get rid of our national debt?
Candidate, and we're all going to have one choice, and they have the freedom to do that because they're both corporate private entities. So let's say they decide that they're both going to put forward their person, and that's who we get to choose, and there's nobody else on the ticket. Is it democracy just because we do get to go through the process of casting the vote for the one person?
No, it's this right here. This is amazing right here.
Future crypto, what does it look like? Well, I think it's a good future. Who knows about anything today? But I think
who knows about anything? I don't know.
it's a
who
good
knows?
future. I'll tell you what. You look at values. You look at what's happening and where it's come and where it came from.
You look at what's happening, where it's come, and where it came from.
I think crypto's got a great future. I think it really does. Maybe we'll pay off the $35 trillion in crypto. I'll write out a little piece of paper, 35 trillion crypto. We have no debt, right? That's what I like, right?
Is he serious? Does he think he could do this? I feel like Trump is dumb enough to think this is an actual thing. Like a crypto bro said something about transferring assets and leveraging it through Bitcoin with US currency and then using that money to pay off the debt or something like that.
And that's available to us. Is that democracy?
Other people could run for president. Nobody's forcing you to vote for that candidate. You could do write-ins. You could vote for another person. You don't have to vote for who the two major parties nominate. You understand that how private companies do things it has nothing to do with democracy, right? Like the DNC could say, we're going to do a survey across the United States of America, and we're going to make the tallest person in America our candidate. That would have no impact on our democracy. I imagine a lot of people would be upset. I probably just wouldn't vote for the Democratic ticket, and I'm sure another party would arise if we believe in free market capitalism. And
no, but Trump never said that about any other currency. Is there something about Bitcoin that's a different conversion?
Freedom and all that. I'm sure another party would come up and they would offer a better candidate. That has no impact on our democracy. Nobody's forcing me to put this person in government.
So you clean it.
This is just
You
the
just clean
candidate
it
they're
with
putting up. And
bleach.
again, I don't think we disagree. Kamala Harris was part of the ticket that got more votes than any other presidential ticket in the entire history of the United States. So why would I want them to do an open primary with a month to go and then have the entire party descend into chaos? Would that be more democratic to allow a whole bunch of people to come in and a whole bunch of crazy stuff to happen? Would we be more unified in 1 month afterwards? No, I think the DNC made the correct choice. The majority of the Democratic voters seem to think that they made the right choice. The fact that the Republican Party is currently in free fall, I think means that most people think the Democratic Party made the right choice. So yeah, I think it was a good choice. And if you don't like it, just don't vote for him. There's no impact on our democracy.
This is the most bizarre argument. I'll let you have that one, because ultimately, I think you just argued against yourself. This is not, you just described anti-democratic processes and trying to claim that it's democracy. I don't even know how to go with that.
When a supervisor tells an employee that they need to clock out because they're going to get overtime, is that anti-democratic?
Companies are not democracies.
They can be.
You have the right to leave your job.
I agree with you. I agree with what you just said. Companies are not democracies. Okay, the RNC and the DNC are private companies. That's all they are. And I agree with you. They're not democracies.
Bitcoin is a good example why we don't need the Federal Reserve. Bitcoin. You think Bitcoin is a good example of that? Is it because... Yeah. I love how the rise of crypto also coincided with the ease and rise of sex trafficking, because the transactions were much easier to do with cryptocurrencies that were not regulated. I loved that aspect of crypto. That was awesome. We should just like let anyone do any sex trafficking they want, and they could all do it with a little bit of crypto.
Democracies.
They're private companies that should not be running as private companies.
Oh, I can't wait. I can't wait until Elon Musk puts a tweet up and my currency is suddenly valued in half of what it used to be. That'll be my inflation, is when Elon Musk decides to say that it's not good anymore, so everyone invests in a different crypto.
Especially when one of them in particular champions itself as the torch bearer for democracy.
So what, we should pass laws in Congress that make the parties part of our Constitution, or we imbue them in law somehow? Like, what does that even mean? I
think that there should be some laws that say that these political parties, if they are going to be political parties putting forth political candidates, that they do have to operate on the basis of democracy, that they should not be operating on the basis of being a private company, that even if they are private corporations, they are still participating in a certain marketplace, the marketplace.
Yeah, the Federal Reserve was made because they wanted a non-political way to adjust policy in a way that would balance what banks were doing with what the country wanted to be done and what the country needed or what people thought should be done with the economy. So now when banks' interests are not represented directly to a politician, the Federal Reserve is able to do interest rate cuts or rises to try and manage inflation and unemployment without having the political process intervene. And Donald Trump wants to ruin that right now because he wants to be able to tell the Fed what to do, which is a really bad thing. And when you're talking about Bitcoin, we are not... if you have a decentralized system of cryptocurrency, how is that going to be not influenced by banks? We're talking about a system where certain banks and like 10 individuals own more wealth than the other 99.9% of people. Those individuals would create their own militaries, their own economic systems, and if you got rid of the entire US government, you would no longer have a democracy we can vote in. You would have a bunch of different little corporations that own the world with their own armies, starting their own corporate governments instead, because you'd have no way to prevent like an Amazon from literally taking over the entire world and every aspect of public infrastructure, public education, literally everything. Amazon would be the new government. We would not have a vote in that if we just took away the Federal Reserve and made Bitcoin in charge. And there's nothing about the volatility of cryptocurrency that says it can be a stable currency at all. There's been nothing but theoretical cyberpunk solutions that'll happen, in 30 years when the perfect AI model comes out to manage how, what interest rate should be.
Of democracy, and they need to follow democratic processes in order to participate in that marketplace. Otherwise, start a different company, be a different type of corporation, sell a product.
If you want to do, if you want to do that, that's fine. But like, we would have to change the entire process. Like, primaries aren't even really. Yes, absolutely. Do you think that a primary is even that democratic? How many people vote in the primaries? What, like 10 or 11 million people? What's democratic about people campaigning for Iowa and New Hampshire because they just arbitrarily happen to be the first two states, that are casting their votes? What's democratic about a caucus, right? A bunch of people standing around and raising their hand and doing, A's and nays. Like, come on, or I's and nays. Like, no. The idea
saying no one controls Bitcoin. I don't have a amazing comparison right now. I thought I had a joke, but saying no one controls Bitcoin, but someone does control the Fed, the interest of the economy and the job of the Fed is still managed by having someone doing that job who wants to perform in an optimal way. They don't want to be remembered as the head of the Fed that was there when the entire economy crashed. People don't just get into that work typically because they want to just be in that position. Unless if you have like Betsy DeVos, then Trump can make her, you know, the head of Department of Education because she wants to destroy education. But that's a different conversation. Talking about Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies, those who influence that system, there are people in control. Whoever has all the money, whoever owns all the Bitcoin, whoever can change what that cryptocurrency ends up, you know, amounting to in the end. And like I said, the volatility of crypto and the nature of the transactions in crypto wallets, there's nothing to say it can be a stable source of anything in the world. And any country that adopts crypto as a serious economic unit is a country that is struggling to survive, and they're just throwing like anything at the wall. And I'm pretty sure every country I saw that used Bitcoin for anything real right now is either a third world country or it's like a dictatorship that gets couped by the CIA every 2 years.
The idea that the primary process is some holy vanguard of democracy is silly. When it historically, you know, over 100 years ago, I don't think parties had primaries for candidates. They literally just put a candidate forward, and we were closer in time then to our founding fathers than we are now. So this idea that we're less democratic because of how the primary, these are private companies. They can put forth candidates however they want. If you don't like it, don't vote for it.
So, okay. I mean, it's if you're going to participate in a democracy, this is kind of like the argument about when certain companies don't want to give services to certain groups of people. They don't like gays, for example, so they don't want to sell services to gays. What the Supreme Court decides is if you're going to have an open business to the public, you have to serve the public. That is, you can't just decide just because you're a private company that you're going to do things your way. There are certain rules to the game. There's got to be rules to the democratic game. If you're going to participate and make a corporation that's going to be participating in the marketplace of democracy, then you need to be democratic in the way that you operate. You can close your primaries to only those who are registered voters, but you should be, but typically what they're supposed to be doing and what we think they're supposed to do, but of course the legalities are a little bit different, is they are supposed to have primaries in each state or caucuses, and people are allowed, if they're especially registered for those parties, to vote in those primaries. Of course, the state doesn't really have to do that. They can, I mean, the parties don't really have to do that. They can, as you mentioned, they are private companies, but just because they can get away with these types of things does not mean that we should allow it or condone it in any way or say this is fine, we're okay with it. We should never be okay with the lack of democracy.
When you say we should never be okay with it, so then for the wait, real quick, for the 150 years or whatever that this country didn't have primaries, then were we not a democracy then? We just became a democracy like a few decades ago or whatever? Like what this argument is nonsense. Primaries have nothing to do with whether or not you are a democracy. How you serve the public has nothing to do with whether or not a company is a democracy. Like this argument is disconnected at every single level. A party can put forth the candidate however they want. Yeah.
On this particular topic, I want to give Kim the last word, and then I do want to examine. Someone in the chat said, "Hey, we really want to hear what you guys both think on Kamala and the economy, particularly." Go ahead, Kim.
Okay.
Why can't they say the name right? I hear people saying the name wrong all the time. Just say the name right. I can't stand it. It grinds my gears. It's so frustrating. I don't even care. It's just so annoying. Just say the name right. It's like just saying Hussein Obama every time. Obama's not his first name. Barack Hussein Obama. Every time. Just say Kamala. Just say it. It's easier to say. Kamala. Kamala doesn't even sound good. Kamala flows right off the tongue. Just say it right. I said it wrong one time. Someone corrected me, and I've been saying it right for like 5 years. All right? It's not that hard.
I don't know what democracy is then. If democracy doesn't involve grassroots people voting for what they want to vote for, getting the candidates in that they want to represent them, getting the policies in that they want to represent them. That to me is democracy. And I think that's the definition to most people. So to say that, well, it doesn't really matter. The democracy is you have the right to vote. You could just vote for, you could write somebody in who you know will never, ever win. And they've just anointed a person is completely antithetical to democracy.
I want to jump into this. Kamala, would Harris be a benefit for the economy? Would this be, maybe the economy would just be sustained, in other words, maintained at where it is, or would it become worse? What do you guys think?
I think that it's hard to predict what a Trump economy would look like because Trump has given basically no policy positions whatsoever. Even though Kamala is a bit to the left of me, I trust her on the economy more because I think that Democrats tend to hold their own accountable. I think that Democrats tend to put a little bit more restraint if a candidate suggests something crazy, but Republicans are completely and totally unable to hold Trump accountable because the entire party is obsessed with Donald Trump. So if Donald Trump says something insane, like he wants to put 10 or 20% tariffs on every import in the world, the entire Republican Party is absolutely silent on it because nobody can say anything to counteract anything he says because, so Donald Trump.
Wait, no, it's not 10 or 20% tariffs. Donald Trump today was saying he's going to put 200% tariffs on companies like John Deere. So it's not 10 or 20%. Trump said 200% tariffs. And also Trump said today that he doesn't need Congress. He said government sucks. He can do it by himself through executive power because he'll be the dictator president. Very democratic, of course. But yeah, 200% tariffs. Donald Trump's plan is fantastic.
Is going to try to bully them out of office and turn them into a rhino and destroy their career. So I definitely trust the Democrats more on economic policy right now because Donald Trump is insane. I don't even know if he knows what a tariff is. And I haven't heard anything very compelling from Donald Trump when it comes to economic policy.
I think we just look at where we are right now as an economy. We're just definitely worse off. We have much higher inflation. Under Biden, it has reached a peak of 9%. Under Donald Trump, I believe that the average inflation was about 1.8, so it's a lot lower. We look at unemployment and jobs. We can't. The COVID pandemic, we can't really count that in. It's unfair to say how many jobs were lost during the pandemic and then how many jobs were regained. But now we've leveled out. We can look at where we're at today in 2024 or even in 2023 comparatively to under Donald Trump in 2018 and 2019. And I think there's no doubt that we are worse off economically by all measurements today than we were in 2018 or 2019.
Yeah, there's this unfortunate reality.
Oh, I hate this. I hate when someone says something like that. If I do like debates again and someone says, I think by all measurements, we're doing worse than we were in 2019, please tell me what measurements. Because when it comes to the total value of the American dollar, wages compared to inflation, compared to grocery prices, we are doing very well compared to 2019. Even pre-pandemic to now, we're doing very well with real wages and grocery prices. Because wages increased around 20 to 25% too, although grocery prices did increase like 25-30%. Consumer goods did spike, but everyone's talking about groceries because that's like the issue that's going to hit middle America and the suburbs the most because they want to spend more money on gambling and football tickets, I guess. That's not everyone, obviously. But yeah, tell me the exact metrics you're going off of, please.
That every time a Democrat comes in office, we basically have to clean up the insane disaster left to us by the last Republican president. When it was Obama, it was having to clean up the disaster of the 2008 financial crisis. And when it was Biden, it was trying to clean up the disastrous response that Trump had to COVID. So is the economy worse?
Yeah, Trump rode Obama's economy, and then he crashed the economy. A lot of the inflation, if you really look at the metrics too, government spending isn't the only thing that increases inflation. And I mean like output spending. So when you're talking about reducing revenue and tax cuts, that also increases inflation and overheats the economy. So the Trump tax cuts driving all of those deficits also led to a lot of the inflation we saw over the COVID pandemic in America, which is even a reason to be even more impressed with the way America rebounded from the COVID pandemic economically. We should be even more impressed with the job Joe Biden did. And this is one of my my least favorite things about politics right now, is how Joe Biden's economy and economic policies are being used as a negative towards Joe Biden. And how everyone's saying that Trump's plans for the economy, how he's still leading, even in the best polls, on trust with the economy, on like a 60-40 margin over Harris, because apparently people have no idea how anything works at all. And it makes me so frustrated. There are zero metrics, zero words even to say that Donald Trump has more clear or better policies, but still people have this idea that he's better on the economy and the border, and being tough on crime just because he sounds like just because he says more provocative things about it.
Stuff now than it was in like 2018. I mean, it depends on which indicators or which metrics you're looking at. There are definitely some things that are harder. Inflation was definitely an issue relating to COVID. But one thing that I noticed was curiously absent from Kim's answer here was, what is Trump going to do about it? There were no policy positions given. There were just statements made about the state of the economy. Donald Trump did massive deficit spending that, of course, would contribute to the inflation that we felt a few years later. Donald Trump slashed taxes. He cut government revenue, and he didn't actually decrease any of the government spending. He ran the highest budget deficits for no reason of any president in all of history. At least Biden can say, well, I was dealing with COVID. I had to do something. Trump just ran massive deficits because he wanted to, because it was the popular thing to do. When the Fed talked about raising rates, he tried to bully them on Twitter. So yeah, of course, anything with a government that's willing to just spend like crazy and reduce the amount of money they take in, of course, the economy is going to be booming. But I mean, if you print a ton of money and you just give it to people for no reason, of course, the economy is going to be booming. What are the policies that Donald Trump is suggesting now that would help Americans going forward? And what do we think about this tariff idea? He keeps saying 10% tariffs, 20% tariffs on everything. How is that just not going to boost inflation even more?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a fan of the tariff idea. I don't agree with.
Yeah, that's another thing about immigration too. Is how if you look at the actual immigration numbers, and I know Kyle Kalinske brings it up as a negative, of course, about like Biden and Obama, the deporters in chief, and Democrats being harsher on the border, or not harsher, but just as aggressive. Trump was harsher in his policies because the way his government, his executive branch carried out those policies was much less, less humane. But the only reason people think Democrats are bad on the border is because they don't say things like illegal aliens, because they don't say things like we need to send them home, because they don't use anger, hate, and racism behind their rhetoric. Because Democrats are also very hard on the border. And the only reason people don't like it is because they want their border security with a good amount of racism mixed in, or they don't like it. And that's the truth about it. They care about that rhetoric more than they care about the actual policies that are happening.
Donald Trump on that.
They're
But going
angry.
back to Harris and
Very
Harris's
angry.
policies and whether or not she has anything that's going to be boosting the economy. I mean, to say that the Democrats are here now cleaning up Republicans' mess, it's an odd way to clean it up. With record inflation, and we've got a record now gig economy, so people are not able to get full-time jobs with benefits. They're instead having to hustle, having 2-3 jobs.
Speaking of the gig economy, by the way, so like DoorDash, by the way. So if you look at these different industries, so we have gambling, we have entertainment, so like the NFL, concert tickets. We have spending on vacations. We have spending on a bunch of things people don't need in general. DoorDash just had record profits. Record profits. There is more spending in all of these areas than there has been in like forever. I know that's a very technical term, in like forever. But it's true that Americans are spending tons of money. And if you're talking about more rights for workers, giving workers health care, raising wages, helping unions, helping families who need childcare, helping so that the gig economy is at least survivable, so those workers can be on healthcare plans, so those workers can have a chance to someday maybe have a union, maybe have healthcare, because gig economy workers don't have healthcare, and because their employers don't need to legally do that because they're technically independent contractors. The only people advocating to make that economy better are Democrats. The only politicians looking to alleviate any of these issues are Democrats. But yeah, the overall point about the economy being really good right now because of all the spending stands. And also, of course, predatory credit cards are an issue, and Trump has a fake solution to that. But there's so many things to consider here.
Jobs. This is an odd way to clean up the mess. So if this is their idea of cleaning it up, I think most Americans agree that they would like to see some change. So, right, maybe Trump, it's unclear exactly what maybe he would do to now clean up Democrats' mess. But I think that just...
Yeah, and it's never okay to blame someone for, their personal decisions, unless if they're really, terrible when it comes to spending money or how they manage money. Blaming someone's personal decisions is wild. You shouldn't do that. But it is true that I know people who are making $15 or less who are door dashing 5 to 6 times a week, maybe 7 or 8. And I know each time they do that, if they buy a $15 meal, if there's a $12 meal at McDonald's, that will cost like $17 in DoorDash because everything's marked up. Then they pay for the delivery fee, they pay for, or they pay for like a rush hour fee, and they pay for a tip. So they're paying like $30 to get McDonald's sent to their house. And sometimes the people I know, they live like a 2-minute drive from McDonald's, and they do DoorDash instead of going to pick it up. And I'm not like, you know, if you stop by a Starbucks, you could buy a house. That's not true. But it is true that there's an issue with spending on those types of things in America. And that's a bunch of issues, both systemic and cultural. And everything right now, and the legalization of sports gambling and casino apps, this massive spread of manipulation tools by the rich is terrible. These are hidden taxes and addictions that are being pushed on people, and they don't even know they're addicted to something because it's not heroin. So they're able to slowly just have their financials drained from them even quicker.
The option for change and potentially the ability to lower inflation, to better the economy, to better our lives. People, I think, are willing to take that risk if the alternative is more of the same.
Yeah, so all I heard was there was one Trump policy I've heard of called tariffs, and I don't like that, and I don't know what else he would do, but hopefully it would be better.
What I'm saying is that what exactly did Biden and Harris do that
Biden and Harris
the
managed,
Republicans' mess?
I mean, they managed COVID decently well. Yeah, there was inflation, but there was less inflation in the United States compared to, you know, the OECD, compared to the G7, compared to like every other Western country in the world. We're doing better than basically everybody else right now. Yeah, there was inflation. There was inflation worldwide. COVID was a huge, like, worldwide stimulus given to every single country on the planet. So of course, there's definitely going to be inflation felt. And Donald Trump didn't do anything to help inflation. Why would I think Donald Trump could help inflation when he had a booming economy and he didn't manage to cut the deficit? Donald Trump couldn't manage the budget when the economy was exploding. Why would I think he could manage the budget when the economy is having trouble? And now you've got the Fed actually announcing that they're going to be cutting rates because inflation has come under control. So it seems like the administration is heading in the right direction. Why would I trust Donald Trump, whose only economic policy he's put forth would increase inflation, which are tariffs? Why would I trust him to do anything good? Can you articulate like a single policy that you think Trump would do that would be good for the average American, that would actually help the economy?
Well, I could tell you what he wouldn't have done that Democrats did do that actually crushed our economy, that actually crushed the economies around the world during COVID in particular, and that was government shutdowns. That was Democrats with their Democratic governors, and that they were taking directives from top down, closing the economy. Of course, when you close the economy, you're going to end up with a lot of ramifications that are going to be very damaging to an economy. And that is not something that any Republican or Donald Trump advocated for. So I can tell you that, yes, the world economy, everything was very bad. Under Biden, things have been bad with COVID. I don't know exactly what you think they did to clean up COVID or to help during that crisis, when actually all of the decisions, in particular lockdowns, have led to massive disaster.
Who do you think was the president during the majority of the lockdowns?
Who do you think actually directed the lockdowns?
Okay, the answer was Donald Trump. The answer was Donald Trump. So Donald Trump was the president during the majority of lockdowns, number one. Number two, when you say, what did the Democrats do? I mean, we could look at a ton of different things. They had the child tax credit, something that Kamala Harris wants to bring back. The child tax credit slashed childhood poverty by like, what, 50%, 54%?
Actually, that was JD Vance's idea. The tax credit is brand new. No one heard about, no one knew about the tax credit until JD talked about it. But I don't talk to JD, so I wouldn't know that. I wouldn't know. I would not know. How do we handle that stuff about people just like spending tons of money? So I know, so credit cards and debt spending, it's really just proof, and buying stuff on layaway. So there's many people who buy couches for $200 a month. The average car payment is skyrocketing. There's people that cannot afford it, paying $500 to $1,000 to $1,500 for their car. People are living paycheck to paycheck, no matter what their income status is. If they make $500,000 a year, or $50,000 a year, or $30,000 a year, they are spending all of that money. No one is managing their finances. A very small percentage of people are, and that's one of the reasons people are living paycheck to paycheck. So on top of making sure more wealth is redistributed, making sure people have healthcare, making sure unions are here, making sure there's more equitable economic conditions in general. On top of that, we need to either ban these predatory loans, ban gambling advertising again, ban super high interest credit cards. There shouldn't be 32% interest credit cards. Set higher standards on who can get credit and access huge amounts of credit for things they don't need. For example, putting a huge vacation on a $10,000 card, which they cannot afford. We need some way to ban these things because people are proving right now that they need limits, or they are going to overspend and drive the entire economy to a point of fracture. And in the end, we also have this culture and this system that is reinforcing the wealth and the redistribution from the working class and middle class to the top 1%. So all of these things need to happen at the same time. And I think when we have a good political movement about one of them, all of them will be affected. But when it comes to people managing their like personal finances, I don't know who's going to listen to that, you know, because the system's not fair, but also in the same sentence, people should not be spending money on DoorDash and buying couches and cars they can't afford at the same time. And I mean people who have the income to even do that, because there's many Americans who don't even have the ability to spend their money bad because they don't make enough money to even live. So it's a really nuanced conversation. So it would have to be talked about in more specifics. But yeah, everyone should make the best of it, you know, the situation that they're in. But there's a lot.
It was a huge boost to working families. What else did they do?
Yeah, no payday loans, and marketing in general. Marketing addictive products. So gambling, smoking, vaping, nicotine patches, Zins, that kind of stuff is huge. People will not admit that they have problems. They will not admit that they are addicts of these substances. But we need to put some type of excise tax or something or whatever to limit these things, because people are not slowing down.
Biden passed legislation to make meaningful change and meaningful investments in our ability to manufacture microprocessors with the CHIPS Act, the ability to reinvest in our infrastructure
And sorry for pausing again. Do we need a sugar tax? So I think that we should be encouraging more healthy food options and make healthy food more accessible, teach cooking more in schools and stuff like that. I am not fully against the idea of some type of, you know, tax or something that reduces sugar consumption, but I think that should come in regulations more, because you don't need a sugar tax to tell Coca-Cola that they should put the European amount of sugar in their soda and not the American amount, because there are so many instances here where you'll find the same company, the same fast food place, the same soda manufacturer, the same whatever. They'll be in Europe with a better tasting soda with half the sugar and with more natural ingredients, mainly because the EU or that country has stricter regulations on what kind of food companies are allowed to sell. So I would rather attack that side of things, where companies need to make their products more healthy, and we need to reintroduce how nutrition facts are tracked on products, because there's so many loopholes to make that nutrition that nutrition information label look better than it actually is. We should be attacking that, and corporations being more straightforward and transparent about how addictive their foods are through like sodium and sugar, and also, you know, tell them to make it healthier. There's no reason Coke needs to have 80 grams of sugar for like a small little can. That's not what they actually have. But the same point applies.
Infrastructure bill, a bill that Donald Trump wanted to get passed, but he couldn't the 4 years that was here. He actually managed to pass a bill that tried to offset the spending of the bill with new tax receipts, with the IRA, the Inflation Reduction Act. I mean, what didn't they do? I mean, the Democrats tried their best, and I think we've seen the results of that. The United States is crushing the rest of the world due to actual legislation that I can articulate and actual policies that I can articulate. Donald Trump just rode off of an economy that was already booming under the last few years of Obama. We've been posting all-time highs in the S&P 500 and the Dow Jones since I think 2013, and all Trump did was came in and he spent more, and then bullied the Fed when they talked about raising rates because they were getting worried about inflation. And then here we are again. You can't articulate a single policy or a single thing that Donald Trump would do. You're mad at shutdowns that happened under Donald Trump.
I'm not arguing for Donald Trump. We're arguing against Kamala.
So in the YouTube Shorts chat, Ali said something about doing more streams talking about just the policy and how to sort of fix these specific issues. So yeah, I'm interested in having those conversations in a more expanded way, more in depth. But one of the big issues is I already do my like full-time job and I DoorDash on the side for multiple reasons that I need to do. And I cannot get monetized on YouTube. I've been trying different accounts to get monetized on YouTube. It's not been working. Once I'm able to get monetized on YouTube and get some memberships and get ads back on my videos and all that kind of stuff, then I'll be able to probably stop doing DoorDash after my regular job, so I could devote more time to doing like videos about that, about those topics. But for now, I'm probably just gonna do the videos that I want to watch, that are interesting to me. I don't really have time to make like content right now, but I do, I am going to try to do that as much as I can as we get close to this election.
Kamala Harris, very specifically. I am not for Donald Trump. I'm not voting for Donald Trump. Let me just make that extremely clear. So I am not arguing on behalf of Donald Trump. I'm arguing against Kamala Harris. What we know is that Democrats have done a very piss poor job of actually managing the economy. We are worse off today by every single measurement.
But we're better than every other country. We came out of COVID.
Except China.
We came out of COVID better off than every other first world country.
How are we better off? We have now given away boatloads of cash to Ukraine, to Israel. We're giving away our money.
That's a drop in the bucket compared to our budget yearly. Okay, number one. Number two, how are we better off? We're crushing them on our job market and our economy. We're crushing them when it comes to inflation. The USD is probably too strong right now for our exports market. What do you mean, how are we? We're crushing them in every way. You graduate with a computer science degree in the United Kingdom, and the first thing you're trying to do is find a job in the United States. You're trying to work for Amazon. You don't want to get paid 39,000 quid a year working as a programmer in the United Kingdom. What do you mean, how are we doing compared to the rest of the world? How are we beating them? We're beating them in like every single conceivable way, except for domestically, we're falling apart because of conservatives' refusal to accept reality. I think this conversation is a good example of that. The Harris policies, if they continue what Biden was doing, I think they put us on a good track. And it'd be cool to see what, Democrats can do when they're not just trying to recover from the disasters left to us by the last Republican administration.
So you're arguing that you really believe that the average American is better off today than they were under Donald Trump?
I don't know if they're better off today than they were under Donald Trump, but that's because we had COVID. The question isn't whether or not we're better off today than we were 4 years ago, because we can't go back in time. Time only moves in one direction. The question is would we have been better off with 4 more years of Trump? Probably not. I don't think so. There's zero indication that that's the case. And then the question would be, in the next 4 years, are we going to be better off with Trump or with Harris? And I see no...
Yeah, and questions that they ask, such as, were you better off 4 years ago than you are now? That type of question is meant to disengage all critical thinking ability that you have, because they don't want to talk about what you're confronting. And I always bring up the example of, it's like going to a firefighter and asking people around town, like, hey, do you think that building was better off before the fire or after the fire? And it's like, no, the building was better before the fire. And you're blaming the people coming in to try and fix the problems on the problems, instead of looking at what the actual problem was and what those people did in order to solve that issue. So Donald Trump had a fire happen during his administration. He did a really bad job of putting it out, and he did not get blamed of it because a different crew took over and actually took care of the fire. But now everyone's blaming the fire itself, and you can't even blame Trump for COVID happening. You blame Trump for how he reacted to those problems. But instead, every issue in the world, when you say, are you better off now than you were 4 years ago, people are more likely to think negatively. So they're going to be like, oh, wait, I'm very angry all the time. And I don't remember how angry I was 4 years ago, but I am super angry right now. I know that. So I am worse off now. That's one of the ways people's brains think when they're asked that question.
No reason. Donald Trump couldn't pass any big bills or any legislation, even stuff he said he wanted to get done. He couldn't even repeal the ACA bias, so he can control any of his spending. All he did was spend. Donald Trump's just, and the only major policy platform he's talking about.
Yep, they're blaming the person who took over. Very true.
He did was spend. Donald Trump's just, and the only major policy platform he's talking about are tariffs on everything. So why would I think Donald Trump would be good? The stock market is posting all-time highs, or unemployment is still low. The Fed wants to cut rates. Every economic indicator is looking positive. I don't even know what to say. What could Donald Trump possibly do? What's wrong with what Harris wants to do?
What's wrong with what Harris wants to do is just continue where we're at right now, which a lot of Americans don't want to be in, which is high inflation.
Inflation has come down. The Fed wants to cut rates. Why would the Fed be talking about cutting rates if inflation was still too high?
Yeah, it's a good question why they want to cut rates just weeks before an election. It's really a good question why they would suddenly want to do that, a record cut to the...
Ooh, it is a very, I'm going to beg this question on my knees. Okay, so it's really a good question. Why is the Fed doing this cut before the election? It's not like the end of the economic year or anything where we're expected to have the U.S. dollar surge even more. It's not even like, you know, we're looking at inflation crash down. It can't be because of those reasons. It's because, of course, the Fed is trying to attack Donald Trump. Of course. It's a conspiracy.
What is the implication that the Federal Reserve is beholden to the Democratic Party? It's an independent operation of banks. What do you mean? I mean, we can do conspiracies if we want.
Well, they're definitely beholden to the establishment.
Oh, the establishment. Beholden to the establishment gets them so much mileage. They can say that for literally anything. They don't need to talk about any actual argument. They just say, it is weird. I'm going to ask this question. It's weird. Isn't there a very curious reason why this is happening? And Destiny will come in and he'll be like, well, no, it's not curious at all. There's a very direct reason why this is happening. And she's like, it's really weird because they're beholden to the establishment. And that's all it takes to convince her side. You don't need to employ any logical thinking at all to agree with her.
They're part of the establishment. Harris is certainly the establishment candidate compared to Donald Trump. So I think they would have a reason for wanting to maintain an establishment candidate.
Hey, and you gotta blame like Kyle Kalinske and Crystal Ball and the populist left, quote unquote. You have to blame them for normalizing this language too, without pushing back on it enough. It took Kyle Kalinske, an attempted coup, and Donald Trump becoming literal KKK man, for him to admit that some of this language isn't very good. But many of those Bernie bros also spent a long time complaining about the establishment, which isn't inherently a terrible thing to talk about those in power, because those people do influence many regulations and policies. And I disagree with Destiny when he says there's not that much influence. You can even just see with the opioid epidemic in the early 2000s, late 1990s, how, there's so many people who flipped from legalizing opioids in a very catastrophic way, in a very unrestricted way. And they went from directly providing that relief to opioid companies such as Purdue Pharma, and they switched from being in the FDA to working on Purdue Pharma's board literally the next year. So you have situations like that where it's like, yeah, there's some type of established power, and those people are going back and forth between the government and the revolving door, the government and private interest. They might be influencing things in a negative way, but just screaming establishment, conspiracy, the cabal, using words like that, disengage all critical thinking. It should be stayed away from, or you should, you should stay away from it. Talk about the specific things at hand as much as you can.
In the White House. But when it comes to Kamala Harris...
Hold on. To be clear, what you are just blindly and conspiratorially suggesting, that's what Donald Trump actually tried to do, right? Your implication is that somehow the Fed is making political decisions. You know that Donald Trump was trying to force them to make political decisions, right? That when Donald Trump took to Twitter and took to the bully pulpit as the president, he was attacking the Fed for talking about raising rates. He was attacking the Fed for that. That's what Donald Trump tried to do. What you're asserting with zero evidence that Biden and Kamala... What, do you not believe the inflation rates that are being posted? Do you think that's all a lie? So the Federal Reserve is just acting on nothing and nobody in our economy can see that? Or...
Well, don't you think that it's interesting then, if you really believe, and maybe you're right, that the Fed completely operates completely independently from any political influence whatsoever, the fact that they feel like they need to do a rate cut this big, what does that tell you?
What do you mean a rate cut this big?
Things are not, this is a very large rate cut.
You can look at you can look at the economic indicators for the actual justification. They have far more justification for this rate cut from the Fed's perspective than the Supreme Court MAGA conspiracy justices have had for their last 10 decisions combined. There's more documented reasonable consensus with this rate this rate cut more than all of those cases combined. I can't do it. I cannot do it, man. And it's another thing right here where Destiny brings it up, where Donald Trump and MAGA, whatever they accuse other people of, whether it's stealing the election. Right now, Donald Trump on 50 different fronts is trying to steal this election. He tried to steal the last election. Whatever they accuse you of, they're actually doing. Mark Robinson complaining about how much he hates trans people and the evils of pornography. And obviously, he has had a very keen interest in both of those things coming together. With his internet accounts. Mark Robinson, biggest hypocrite ever. And the actual voter fraud we saw with trying to steal the code from voting machines, they were Trump supporters. It's wild. The people trying to politically pressure the Fed, it's always Trump. They are the ones trying to do these things. The people bringing fascism and stealing freedoms, it's Trump. Everything they accuse Democrats of, they are trying to do aggressively.
No, it's
this
not.
is not. This is a large rate cut. They don't do just 0.5 a point out of nowhere. They usually do 1/4 of a point, not 1/2 a point. That's actually quite a large rate cut.
No.
For them to be doing that right now shows that they believe the economy is in dire straits under Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, that they have to take drastic measures in order to correct it.
No. Hold on. I'm so sorry.
Why are they doing it?
Why,
then?
wait.
Are
What
they
do you
doing
think?
it because the economy is
What are the
good?
two things that the Federal Reserve try to manage?
Why don't you tell me?
Okay. So you don't know. Okay. The
Why
Federal
don't
Reserve
you
tries to
tell
balance
me?
unemployment and they try to balance inflation. Okay. These are the two indicators that the Federal Reserve looks at to determine how they should set rates. If inflation is getting really, really, really low, then the Federal Reserve is going to cut rates because we should have some amount of inflation to keep the economy healthy and moving. That's how the Federal Reserve makes decisions. And then it also looks at unemployment. If unemployment is getting, too high, then they might cut rates as well. It just depends. Like these are the two things. But balancing out unemployment and inflation are the two. That's the mission statement of the Federal Reserve. How could you accuse, the Federal Reserve of acting in a politically partisan way if you don't even know what the mission of the Federal Reserve is? You're just saying random things.
I'm dropping that accusation.
I actually read it on X, and it said breaking news before it, and it said verified fact on X. So therefore, my opinion was correct, and I have proof. It's actually, I have multiple anecdotal evidences from Springfield, Ohio, of the Fed. The Fed chair was actually in Springfield, Ohio. He was driving the bus of all the illegal migrants who are actually legal immigrants who are coming to town, and I was there watching it.
In a politically partisan way, if you don't even know what the mission of the Federal Reserve is. You're just saying random things.
I'm dropping that accusation. I'm asking
Okay,
you,
okay.
why did they do the rate cut?
Because
Why did
they
do
feel
the
like
rate
inflation has come down significantly.
cut? So they want to boost it back up?
Yes.
You think that's exactly why they did? So they did a rate cut because they want inflation.
What do you think the goal inflation percentage is? You have no idea. You realize you have no idea. You're laughing because you think inflation should be at 0%. Ideal inflation is 2%. What do you think unemployment should be?
2%.
0%? Yes, correct. 2% is the target. That's correct. And if they feel like we're undershooting that target, then they try to preemptively cut rates or raise rates because it takes
This is really the environment,
a little
man.
bit for the Federal Reserve policy, for the federal funds rate to actually impact with the trading of all the securities and everything else later on. So yes, that's why they're doing it. We can all look at the inflation rate. We can all look at the unemployment. These numbers are all posted publicly and everybody looks at them. So, I mean.
So you can take all of this information, and what happens now, and this is what really scares me about the Donald Trump world, is essentially, we know there is a certain inflation rate and unemployment rate that works. We know there's certain economic policies that make sense. But when it comes to the common understanding, and this is one reason Project 2025 is so scary, is because they want to get rid of all these people in government who have trained and gotten themselves ready to interpret this information and to use it effectively in government. And it's really scary that you can talk about what's the key inflation point that'll help the economy grow in a healthy way. How can we avoid boom bust cycles? And you have this room of adults, and I don't like using that framing, but you have this room of people who have done the job. And by the way, I would say this for myself. I have studied public policy. I have a master's degree. I can manage these things pretty effectively, much more than someone who I know who might be in EMS, for example. And that person who's at EMS is very skilled at what they do, and they work in a very, noble profession. They are heroes. They save so many people. But I would not trust myself, and they should not trust me, driving an ambulance or taking care of someone who's in critical condition and getting them to the hospital. I would not interfere with that person and say, I know how to be EMS better, I know how to do this stuff better. But the issue is, in politics, actually knowing what you're doing doesn't really matter, because when people vote on you, you could just be convincing, which is why we have the celebrity culture. But it just intuitively makes sense for so many people. Lower inflation, better. 0 unemployment percent, better. All of this kind of stuff. And when we have to deal with the critical analyzation of what we need to do, is analyzation a word? I don't even know. But the critical, discussion of what needs to be done, these voters, these people cannot handle these complicated conversations. They're acting purely off emotion. And they're the ones laughing at us haha, silly liberal. You're a silly liberal thinking you need to use all that data from the universities. Hey, silly liberal, you know that Elon Musk said on X that the media is all liberal, and also all the professors of universities are liberal, and that's why that all the experts, the so-called experts, are all liberal because they're all indoctrinated. It definitely is not because they actually understand the topics. No, it's because they're indoctrinated. They're part of the deep state. They're part of the cabal. It's a conspiracy.
So the economy's so great. So you're just saying the economy's great. You want to keep it going the way that it is.
I didn't say the
You don't think that there
economy.
are
They
any
don't look at the
problems
economy. They look at inflation and they look at unemployment.
which are indicators of the economy and how healthy the economy is.
They could be. They might not be.
Yeah,
It just
they are.
depends. They are two indicators, but the goal of the Federal Reserve is not to make the economy good or make the economy bad. The two indicators that they look at are inflation and unemployment. Those are the two things
Okay.
that they're, yeah.
Yeah, so essentially, this is what Donald Trump put on there earlier. Put on fake Twitter. Right here. Wow. Democrats dominate academia. Communications. 100% of Democrats, or no, 100% of communications professors are Democrats. I guarantee it's not 100%. I want to know where they got this data from. I really don't believe that. I guess it would be skewed enough where it's possible in their sample they would find only, depending on how big the sample would be. But engineering, 61%, chemistry, 83%, all that kind of stuff. Overwhelmingly Democrat. But it's like, wow, these experts dominate academia. Not because they know more. It's because they think there's a conspiracy that Democrats are just indoctrinating everyone. And that's the big thing about, well, my son went to college and became trans, and their professor made them a communist.
But you're arguing that you think that the economy under Kamala Harris and Joe Biden right now is great and that we should just continue on and that Americans are going to be fine.
I'll give you a chance to respond, Stephen, but then I do want to jump into a new topic because we're going to go into Q&A about 15 minutes or so.
Sure. Yes, I think obviously I think I've articulated policy. I've articulated economic positions. I've articulated how the economy has rebounded under COVID. I've articulated that the United States is ahead of the rest of the OECD. Every indicator points to the fact that this administration did a phenomenal job coming out of COVID for sure. And the major complaint that you had, the two major complaints I would guess would be like massive deficit spending, and then the one that you articulated, which was lockdowns, all happened under Donald Trump. So yeah, I do think that the Harris administration would be superior to whatever the Republicans put up.
I want to give Stephen the last word this time, and then I want to go into the next topic, which is Kamala on the border. Who would be better for the border, Kamala or
Kamala. Okay, if you say Kamala, okay, if you say Kamala's name wrong, I cannot respect your opinion. If you say Kamala's name wrong, Kamala, if you say it wrong, I cannot listen to you. I will assume that your opinion is going to be the dumbest thing I ever heard, and I'm going to stop listening to you. I can't deal with it. I hate it. It makes me so mad. I don't care about it for any other reason except you sound like a dumbass, okay? That's the only reason I care. I just can't do it, bro.
an alternative? What do you guys think?
Do you want me to go first again, or?
You're arguing for Harris, right?
Yeah, Kamala would be better on the border because we've already seen Biden and the Democrats try to put up a border bill.
Say the name right, please. Did he say it wrong? Did he really just say it wrong after I said that? That's very disrespectful.
Yeah, Kamala would be better on the border because
Okay,
we've
I think he did it just because he did.
already seen Biden and the
Just 'cause he
Democrats
did.
try to put up a border bill that would address a lot of the border problems. This bill was a Republican-authored bill. It was by Langford.
Sometimes
in
you got to
the
speak
Senate.
their language.
They tried to put it up, and Donald Trump wanted the Republicans to vote it down because he wanted to keep the border open in order to run an election issue. So the idea that the Republicans would try to destroy the border for politically advantageous reasons is the only thing that I need to know to say that I would never trust these guys with any type of security issue, because clearly them winning political battles is more important than them actually securing the border, which we might see coming up soon with the budget. But yeah.
They've had 4 years. So even if there is some interference that happens closer to an election, they've had 4 years to do something about the border. But instead, their policies have led to a massive wave of people coming through the border, and they have laughed it off. They have shrugged off border issues since Donald Trump was elected in 2016. They claimed it was a conspiracy theory. They chose to do nothing.
No, they laughed off the idea that Democrats are bringing in vans of people to illegally vote in elections. That's what they laughed off because it's dumb. And the idea that you could just build a wall to solve immigration issues, when the type of immigration that everyone's complaining about right now has nothing to do with the southern border. The idea that you can build a wall and say that's immigration policy is dumb. You can even say you're in favor of reinforcing the border as part of the Democrats' plan for immigration and securing the border or whatever. But if your only rationale for the border policy is we need to build a big wall to keep people out. These illegal aliens are coming and raping everyone. If that's your only logic behind your decision, you're not talking about immigration policy. You're not. And that conversation is always going to devolve into complete and utter nonsense. Immigration policy is very complicated. These fantastical ideas of deporting 50 million people who are mostly like hardworking families who are I can't even talk, who are important, integral part of our parts of our community. It's wild, bro. That's what they're laughing, bro. I can't talk. I can't speak.
Nothing about it. And now it has gotten so bad that they've realized that their own rhetoric, their own policies have led to a severe crisis that even they can no longer ignore. And they're now having to finally do something about it. But part of the reason why we have this border crisis is because Democrats over the last 8 years refused to do anything about it until now. It's just so big of an issue that even Democratic governors and mayors are screaming, please help, this has gone wrong and we really have to do something about it. They let the problem get so bad because they were trying to score political points all of these years that we're now where we're at to where they have to actually do something about it. So I think just on the merits, Kamala Harris and Joe Biden, but Harris specifically going forward as president, the fact that she...
And notice that the conversation about immigration Donald Trump's campaign is currently having. Donald Trump's campaign is currently talking about deporting children who are nationalized citizens of America, calling them just anchor babies. They want to separate families, deport children, deport U.S. citizens currently, who are here under protective status, who were granted either amnesty, who were granted just, being located here after overstaying a visa or whatever else. DACA recipients. Donald Trump, the reason there's been nothing moving on immigration is because the only thing Donald Trump's, political coalition wants to do, the Donald Trump faction, the only thing they want to do is very punitive. It's very anti-human. It's very dumb policy-wise. Of course, they're not going to sign on to Donald Trump's immigration plan that has zero actual solutions for addressing any of the real issues behind immigration. The only thing Donald Trump's immigration plan addresses is making scared white people feel more justified in their fear and self-righteousness.
Ignored these issues for so long, claiming that it was just some sort of a Trump talking point or a MAGA talking point to let it get to this bad just goes to show that this is not a serious person who's really truly looking to solve America's problems.
Please drop a like on the stream if you just joined. I see the YouTube Shorts has around 50 viewers now. Thank you for hanging out. Please drop a like and subscribe if you vibe, all that kind of stuff. I'm very tired, but I'm going to keep on going. I want to finish this video. These are pretty interesting to me. Thank you all for hanging out tonight.
Problems. This is somebody who's actually looking to score political points, the very thing that you're actually accusing them, the Republicans, of doing.
Yeah, I mean, we had 4 years of Donald Trump. Where is our immigration bill? Where's our border bill? Where's the wall? Trump did nothing. He had both houses of Congress, and Trump did absolutely nothing about the border. It's funny because Trump says, I ran on immigration because we had problems with the wall. That's not true. Even on Trump's own little stupid chart that he posts, Obama was posting better immigration numbers than he was. So Obama was doing better than Trump on immigration. Trump wants to say it's not fair to count the last year or two, of my administration because COVID messed everything up, but he sure does want to take credit for the lowered immigration numbers under COVID. And then you saw them start to spike back up, even though he lied on his chart for when, he was actually out of office. They were spiking up almost to all-time highs right before he left office. So clearly Donald Trump wasn't capable of managing anything at the border. And when Democrats did want to pass something to manage the issue at the border, the Republicans blocked it. It was a good bill. It would have helped a lot with the asylum process. It would have provided more funding for border agents. It would have provided more funding for asylum judges to process people that were here for asylum claims. Like, everything about that bill was good, and the Republicans blocked it. So yeah, again, it's like a policy thing. Like, what is Donald Trump going to do about the border? And why would I think that Donald Trump could do whatever he says he's going to do when he can't articulate any plans whatsoever? And he couldn't do it in the 4 years that he was president. Where is my immigration bill? Where's my border bill? Where's my wall from my 4 years of Donald Trump?
Well, Democrats blocked all of that
They
because
would
they weren't
no.
taking
The
it
Republicans
seriously.
had the House and the Senate. You can't use that
They
excuse.
didn't have enough of a majority. They didn't have enough of a majority, and they need more. They needed some bipartisan support. Democrats, instead of even taking this situation seriously, laughed at it, scoffed at it, mocked it, claimed it was some sort of political talking point when it was an actual real problem. And now it's gotten so bad that Democrats now want to finally do something about it, something that Republicans have been wanting to do for the last 8 years. And Democrats want to pass a bill and then take credit for it. I don't blame the Republicans for wanting to block that, to score political points at this juncture when they know that this is something Democrats have been blocking for the last 8 years. Now, finally, Democrats are on board. Now, finally, Democrats see that there's an actual real problem, but they only want to do that now that Democratic governors and mayors have been screaming, saying, we can't handle this. There's a massive
Wait, which Democrat governors were saying, well, not saying, but which Democrats were screaming about the immigration thing in the manner she's talking about? And by the way, I don't think this works for this, right? You said, Ali, that these don't work, like the Discord, like that kind of thing. I just tried it on the regular stream. It seems to be working.
influx, and you guys have been
the YouTube, it looks like it doesn't work on YouTube Shorts to have the links, right? I believe that's what you said.
and mayors have been screaming, saying, we can't handle this. There's a massive influx, and you guys have been ignoring it and treating it like it's some sort of a racist policy to secure the southern border. So, you know, the reason why Donald Trump was unable to get anything through was because Democrats continue to use it as a talking point, as a campaign point, making it about racism rather than a real problem. And here we are today. I don't trust Democrats to fix something when they have been the ones blocking it for the last 8 years.
Okay, well, I mean, you just gave me every reason in the world never to vote for Trump on this issue because you just admitted that Donald Trump can't do it without a supermajority, I guess, in the House and the Senate, which he will never have. So I automatically know that no matter what, Donald Trump will never be able to get anything passed. And so then I have to look at Harris and I have to look at Biden. And when Biden and Harris were supporting this bill, they actually did have support in the House and the Senate. The only reason that it wasn't passed is because Donald Trump, the cancer rotting our country, came in from the outside and said, don't pass this bill. I need to be able to talk about Haitians eating dogs and whatever other nonsense I want to make up in order to actually be able to win the next election. So it seems like there was a bill under the Democrats that was ready to pass with support from the legislature. It just didn't because of Donald Trump. And under Donald Trump, there were no bills because Donald Trump can't make deals with anybody. And the fact that he needs a supermajority in both houses of Congress to pass anything is a bigger indictment against his leadership than probably anything I could have said on my own.
Well, I think that you just made the argument, the same exact argument, but against the Democrats, because if Democrats, if a few Democrats, a handful of Democrats, the need for a supermajority is what blocked Republicans, how pathetic is it that one man was able to stop Democrats?
This might be an opportunity to go.
Yeah, sure. Why it wasn't.
Wait, what? What did she just say?
Democrats, if a few Democrats, a handful of Democrats, the need for a supermajority is what blocked Republicans, how pathetic is it that one man was able to stop Democrats?
Wait, one man was able to stop Democrats, like for the immigration bill? If it's razor thin margins and Donald Trump says that you shouldn't vote for it as a Republican, of course that'll stop the bill. The idea that they even built up enough consensus with Republicans is impressive enough on a bill like that. But Donald Trump said to his sycophants, hey, you can't do this because it'll hurt me in the election. What kind of point is she making? What does she think she's saying here? Does she know that she makes money from this so she can't actually I don't know. No person who's smart enough to set up their computer and to stream to thousands and hundreds of thousands of people, no person who has the ability and mental capacity to do that should have these opinions. It should not be possible.
This might be an opportunity to go.
Yeah, sure. Why it wasn't one? It was one man telling all the lawmakers not to vote for the. Yeah, it is an issue.
Got a lot of power there. I guess he's sitting there wielding his power against the Democrats that can't get anything done because of Donald Trump.
True. Cults are very powerful. Their leaders, they wield a lot of power. That is how dictators work. Yes.
Wait. Okay. So this entire debate, she's talking about how Democrats can't get anything done, and now she's bragging that Democrats cannot get anything done because Donald Trump is making sure that he uses his political capital to block everything that Democrats are trying to do. These fake left Bernie bro progressives who are now far right fascist adjacent Putin apologists, they make it so easy. I feel like the trained conservatives would never admit that because that's what they say. Why didn't Kamala do anything yet? Oh yeah, because Republicans blocked it. the child tax credit. Why didn't Kamala do that in her 4 years as vice president? Because there was a vote. You can find a vote for literally everything. Republicans blocked it for the child tax credit. JD Vance didn't even show up. Republicans blocked. Why didn't Kamala do anything on immigration? Republicans blocked the immigration bill. Why didn't Kamala do these other policies she wanted to, that she's talking about now? Because Republicans blocked it. And all the policies Democrats actually did to address the economy, and which are helping the economy recover now faster in America than any other, first world country globally. Those policies that Democrats were able to successfully do, which includes the infrastructure plan, the bipartisan infrastructure plan, the bipartisan plan. Trump had like 50,000 infrastructure weeks and never got one done. Biden's administration actually got infrastructure done. Somehow those are used as points against Democrats. No matter what Democrats do, they could pass Utopia today, and Republicans will find a way to go against it. But Kim Iverson is not smart enough to be a propagandist even. I don't know if the funding from these foreign governments has got to be, it needs to be a lot of money that she's getting from a foreign government or something, or just like dumb members to her channel or people donating. It needs to be something.
This might be a good opportunity. One last topic, Harris on crime. What are your thoughts?
For crime stuff, it's kind of hard on the federal level because I feel like crime is a thing that's typically dealt with at the city and state level. I really don't know how much influence.
Yeah, Destiny, but you're talking about policy. Who yells more angrily about crime is what I'm asking. Who yells angrily about crime? Because I don't think Kamala is, she's not racist enough, and Donald Trump is. Therefore, Donald Trump's harder on crime.
Anybody can have on the federal level when it comes to enforcing things relating to crime. I do know that, if I can look at like direct actions that people take, like the mobilization of things like the National Guard, I know that Donald Trump was in charge of the National Guard on January 6th, and he decided not to deploy them for political reasons. So I don't know why I would trust that guy who will allow some crime to happen as long as it's advantageous to him. I don't know how I would ever trust that guy in managing anything related to crime. I also don't think I trust Trump on anything that he says for crime, because I know that, for instance, when Walz was dealing with BLM stuff in his state, Donald Trump had a lot of nice things to say about him. But as soon as he was running for president again and Walz was made the VP pick, all of a sudden Donald Trump hated everything that he did. So I don't know if I could trust anything on Trump when it comes to crime. And again, I would challenge, I'd love to hear a single position articulated that Donald Trump has talked about that would help anything related to crime in the United States. But again, I don't know what the president, the federal president can do in regards to crime.
Before Donald Trump gave his input, how many votes was the immigration bill going to get? Was it going to get a simple supermajority? Not a simple majority, but was it going to get 67 votes? Or was it going to get like 75 or like 70 plus? I'm not sure what the numbers were. Do you have any idea?
I think that when we look back at just even Kamala Harris's record on crime as a prosecutor, she has a mixed record.
Oh, she says Kamala's name right. I respect her opinion. She's very smart. I've always said this. I've always said Kim Iverson is so smart.
Back at just even Kamala Harris's record on crime as a prosecutor, she has a mixed record. Democrats in general have been very lax on crime. They have advocated for lax criminal policies. There was a lot of defund the police chatter. There was a lot of, bail out the people that committed crime during the Black Lives Matter protests and funds that were created. Democratic policies across various different states have allowed for criminal activity. I live in the state of California. They allow now a certain amount of criminal activity.
Don't repeat that dumb lie about the $950. They don't allow a certain amount of criminal activity. They don't allow $950. They walk in the store with the calculator and they say, I'm going to steal $949 because, the lie they keep repeating about $950 in California, okay? It's the difference between a misdemeanor and a felony. If you steal over $950, it's an upgraded charge. Under $950 is still illegal. You'll still go to jail. It just won't be a felony. And the amount you can steal, quote unquote, based on this logic here, she's about to say, because every right-wing hack says this. I believe Texas's limit is like $3,000. So the same limit where California increased it to $950, Texas has a limit of like $3,000 that you could just steal. Of course, that's not true. It's where the charge is upgraded, but still, I can't believe she's repeating this.
to go completely overlooked. I think I agree that I'm not sure what the president can really do. I mean, the president doesn't really even have much on, like, when it comes to tax policies, for example, that has to be done through Congress, or even the border policies have to be passed by Congress. There's very little a president themselves can actually do without an act of Congress. But when it comes to crime, these are more about, I think, the policies of the platform of the party. And Democrats as a party have run on, we want to allow more criminal activity, essentially, or certain things are not really crimes when they really are. So I think the entire messaging of the Democratic Party, which is, of course, led by now Kamala Harris, is one that is not tough enough on crime. When, interestingly, Kamala Harris, though, has a very mixed record. When she was a prosecutor, she was known for being...
Did she name one actual policy at all? And now she's referencing how the far left during the Bernie Bro era was mad at Kamala for being too much of a cop, but now Kamala's not good enough on crime? Kim Iverson holds every position. It's very amazing. It's like what I say. Hey, what's up on Twitch? Will there be chaos on election day? I don't know. You should hop over to YouTube, to my actual channel. I'm streaming to my... I'm streaming to the wrong Twitch account for one, but come over to Jolah on YouTube. JOLAH. Yeah. It's like what I do when I, like, if I'm in a city, if I'm in a car, then I'm very, like, pro cars. You know what I mean? Like driving through a city. There is a conflict between people who walk, people who ride bikes, and cars, because they want to use the infrastructure there. Whenever I'm riding in a car, I'm very pro car policy. Whenever I'm riding a bike, I'm very pro bike policy. And whenever I'm walking, I'm very, like, pro, walking infrastructure and anti-car. So I could hold different positions. I'm very versatile, and I agree with many different positions on the political spectrum. And I adjust my views based on when they suit me.
Being quite tough on crime.
Yeah, I don't know if I would trust a guy who's a 34 convicted felon, 34 felony convicted felon who the biggest engagement that he has with law enforcement is, or crime-related stuff, I guess, is giving pardons to literally every single friend that he has who has been convicted on crimes. Some people that are very, very hard to excuse his pardons for. So yeah, I wouldn't trust Trump on anything related to crime.
I think people are more concerned about actual violent crime and theft rather than white-collar crime. So even if...
Really, what was Occupy Wall Street about?
That was something people were obviously very concerned about at the time. But now we're in a different era. You're talking about another decade or...
White-collar crime leads to the actual violent crime she's talking about. What is she even saying? People don't care about white-collar crimes anymore? People care about, supposed immigrants stealing money from American workers. But they don't care about white-collar crimes where rich people still steal billions of dollars from people. You don't care about billions of dollars, but they do care about, like, an immigrant being able to buy, like, a bag of chips or something after working 12 hours on a field somewhere.
For 15 years, and here we are with violent crime rampant in the streets. We've got people
What
being
do you
able
mean?
to steal inside, theft up to $900 at a local Walgreens is legalized. So there's a lot of crime happening that
That's
are
not
really,
true.
truly affecting people. They're afraid, and it's the defund the police movement was very much part of the reason why police forces are not stacked enough with enough staff to handle this rise in violent crime. Why is there violent crime, by the way? Because of inflation. When the economy sucks,
What?
crime goes up.
Yeah,
What?
I don't...
Huh? What? What are we talking about? What did she just say?
I'm not even sure if I think, like, violent crime, I think, is lower now, I think, than it was even at the
isn't.
lowest. I'm pretty sure it is.
No.
I know that for...
They lied on the statistics. It's not lower.
Oh, well, if they
weren't
lied on the
collecting from all of
statistics,
the
my
states.
bad.
Well, if you're only going to collect stats from some states, from a handful of states, rather than all of them, then you can claim that they're lower. Or if you actually change the definition of crime and you say that stealing up to $900 is not criminal, or if people are not reporting.
When you say
because the
stealing up
police
to
won't do anything
$900 is
about
not
it.
criminal, are you talking about stealing up to $900 doesn't count as a felony, or that it was just a misdemeanor, or that cops like? Are you saying that you can just steal? I'm pretty sure what you're talking about is people classifying different amounts of theft. The difference between it being a felony and a misdemeanor. I don't think that it being not a crime at all is real. I think you just made that up.
You can look it up. Here in California, you can steal up to a certain amount, and you're not going to even.
Why do we have to live in this world? We're not even debating things. I went to school, and I knew this going in, but I went to school to get educated with like policy and stuff, but we're not even talking about policy. And I knew that I should have gone into like political communications or something, because right now we're talking about the basis of like reality. We're not debating policy versus policy. We are trying to convince people that real things exist. And communications and media and all that stuff is by far, you know, the share of the spreading of information is by far the most important thing today. But why are we having these conversations? Why is someone with millions of followers talking like this? It's so painful.
You can look it up. Here in California, you can steal up to a certain amount, and you're not going to even. If you call the cops, they're not going to show up. So it doesn't matter what
These
you've
are
done.
two different things, right? Like calling the cops and them not showing up or not having enough people to, you know.
Why aren't there enough cops?
I don't know why there aren't enough workers for anything right now. What do you mean? Unemployment is incredibly low. We're looking for workers in literally every single field. We also don't have enough nurses or
doctors. The police
or
had something to do with that.
No, because in most of the states where they tried defund the police, it was a fucking disaster, and they ended up rolling back basically all of those policies.
Yeah, well, they can't get those cops back. They already left, so now trying to rehire them back.
She's having her own conversation right now. She's not even responding to things Destiny's saying. She could be talking to a wall right now. Like that wall behind her, that fake brick wall. She could be having a conversation with that wall that has more substance. She's literally not saying anything at all. She just said something about inflation causing crime and people being able to steal up to $950, which is the actual number. And Destiny said, "What do you mean by that?" And she said, "Well, look it up." And then she just started going on a rant about like, well, defund the police is why there's no police officers. And it's like, well, crime's not actually going up. And she's like, well, there's a conspiracy that it is. It's like, what the heck?
Policies.
Yeah, well, they can't get those cops back. They already left.
Yeah, well, they can't get those cops back. She's not even engaging with anything that he's saying at all.
So now trying to rehire them back has led to a decrease in the police forces. They're not going after a lot of crimes. You call the police, you're going to be waiting on hold for a couple of hours unless it's an active, violent...
Yeah, and okay, if anything, in most, I would say in most jurisdictions and most cities throughout the country, I would say in probably 95+% of cities, police funding is up. I would probably wager that we're at a record high in police spending in America right now. If I had to guess. Just in total spending, I believe police spending is up.
crime that's happening to you right then and there. It is a disaster at this point. So
this is how the police have always worked. Yes, unfortunately, it sucks. But I remember when I had shit stolen from me when I was in fucking high school. Yeah, if you call the cops, unless you're actually getting murdered right now, the cops will tell you like, hey, listen, come down to the station. We'll file a report, or we can take some notes on the phone, and that's it. You're never gonna hear again. If some shit gets stolen from you, you're lucky if your car gets reported to you. Maybe if it shows up at the right tow yard and they run the VIN and they give you a call or whatever. But yeah, cops don't have time to investigate every single petty crime that ever happens. Usually the priority is going to be responding to violent crime. But that's always. I mean, would it be nice to increase funding to police? Yeah, for sure. But I mean, cities only have so much money. There are different motives.
And a bunch of stores such as Walgreens admitted that they vastly overestimated the incidence of shoplifting and the total amount of money they lost from shoplifting. They greatly overestimated it. So a lot of these stores are walking back the claims that they're being driven out of business by people just stealing things, because that largely was not true.
That are pushing people in different ways, but the idea that we just want to make it legal to steal stuff, what would even be the incentive for that? Like, we're gonna make it legal so people can steal things so that we can piss all of our citizens off and lose our elections, and did California even do defund the police? Like, was that even a huge thing? Was funding for police in California ever even a thing? Like the reduction of funding for police in California, did that ever even?
Yes, these for you to believe Democrats have done this, you need to believe that Democratic politicians literally said, hey guys, we are going to make it legal to steal from everywhere, all right? There's going to be crime everywhere. We support crime. If you steal less than $950, there's no penalty. You need to believe that Democrats actually had this line of thinking. If you want to think, if you want to peer into the mind of someone who believes this, follow that logic tree, and then think about what information they are being told, which would make them believe in that reality.
Even happen?
Yeah.
I want to give you a chance to respond, Kim, and then we have one last topic before the Q&A.
I mean, once again, the messaging of Democrats. So it's the messaging of Democrats has been look the other way, defund the police. Violent crime is not a real thing, claiming that violent crime isn't up when in fact they're changing the definitions and manipulating the statistics in order to have it favor themselves, just like they do when they say racism's up, claims of racism are up because
no, not racism's up.
they change the definition of what is racism in order to collect more people as, these statistics and lies.
I forgot Democrats are in charge of crime reporting data from police departments around the country. I'm sure Democrats are in charge of all of that. And the FBI actually wants less funding, so they're reporting less crime on purpose because they want less funding. The FBI wants to be defunded.
Right, whatever the phrase is, but they've definitely been able to manipulate them. Crime is up, and they're not doing anything about it. Democrats have actively campaigned against doing anything about it with defund the police.
So most of the stats that I see for violent crime show that violent crime is down now, even compared to where it was under the Trump administration. But I guess we're changing some definitions. I do think it's interesting looking at a Pew Research poll that shows that Republicans are far more concerned with crime than Democrats are, which is interesting to me because I would imagine most of the big cities where the crime is occurring are where Democrats live. So I don't know if it's just Republicans that are, sitting in suburbia watching TV that think that violent crime is this huge issue that they're not even experiencing. That's interesting to me that in 2024, 68% of Republicans think that crime should be a top priority as opposed to 47%.
Same with immigration too. Republicans are not around immigration. Democrats usually are. Democrats are pro-immigration. Republicans are anti-immigration. The moment Republicans get close to immigration, they freak out and become Nazis.
Of Democrats that are probably more likely to live in cities or big crime areas. So kind of makes me think that it's just a talking point coming from the radio that people aren't actually engaging in reality with, at least for the Republican side here. But again, that was my central concern at the very beginning.
This might be a good opportunity to jump into the Q&A. One question coming from Otto is from Ukraine. Say, don't you guys think it is impressive that you guys...
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. The people in charge of getting like crime stats put together, they are not motivated to show less crime appearing. These are not liberal nonprofit agencies looking to produce progressive, and either way, by the way, progressives and liberals want to accurately track crime as well, because most progressive policies on crime, if you have an area that has a spike in crime and this area has done only police funding and has not funded any social services, many progressives and liberals use that as an argument for, hey, look, this over-policing in these areas is not working. We need to try something else here. So if it was political, there would be no reason to do that. And if you have Republican presidents, Democratic presidents, it's a completely incoherent thought to say that the crime data is not being reported correctly or it's not correct right now. And thank you for hopping on the stream. I think we have like a half hour of this left. I put it at 1.25. Please drop a like, add a subscription. We're just hanging out tonight. I'm trying to get this streaming software working. It seems to be doing okay so far.
You guys started realizing the scale of Russian influence only now. You are 15 years too late. This might be also an issue in terms of Kamala on foreign policy, but I'll give you each a chance to respond to this.
Yeah, Russian intrusion is obviously a huge problem in our country. It has been for 10 years. But again, conservatives are literally brain broken on this topic and they cannot engage with it whatsoever. And they would rather screech and scream about the hook-nosed guy running AIPAC than they would about actual people in other countries that are trying to destroy the United States and our ability to have any kind of discourse here. You've seen it with bots that are spread like crazy across Twitter. You've seen it recently with the indictments that came out over TUNA Media. You saw it with Mueller indictments for the Internet Research Agency and all of the other social media accounts that he exposed. We've seen it over and over and over and over again. But again, as soon as you bring up Russia, people's minds on the conservative side, you immediately break in half.
Yeah, we spent about $32 million on that Mueller investigation that didn't actually result in any sort of Russian interference or meddling in our elections. They instead uncovered people that maybe weren't exactly honest to Congress. So there was some obstruction of justice or lying under oath that they ended up getting people for. But we really haven't actually gone and found this massive Russian interference in our elections.
Are you? Hold on. Wait. Do you think that any indictments came from the Mueller investigation?
Like I said, the indictments that came, were any of them because of Russian meddling?
Yes.
That there was actual direct Russian.
Yes.
Who was indicted for Russian meddling?
There were 12 indictments made for Russian nationals that ran a company in the United States called the Internet Research Agency that came from the Mueller investigations.
And the Mueller investigation concluded that they didn't really have much of an influence.
No, that's not true. That's not true at all.
There was any
they
real
can't even
true influence in our elections.
Okay, that's great if we just make stuff up. But hold on, to be clear, wait, how much money do we make?
Yeah, that's true with everything, Egghead. Just don't look at any information about anything at all. And our data makes a lot of sense.
They can't even
true influence in our elections.
Okay, that's great if we just make stuff up. But hold on, to be clear, wait, how much money do we waste on the Hillary email investigation? How much money do we waste on the Benghazi thing? How many millions of dollars do we just waste on the House's effort to impeach Biden, and they didn't even do an impeachment vote at the end? Like, it's not even close.
This one from Richie Constitution says, Destiny, why do you always talk about Trump? I thought this debate was about Harris.
Because it's a two-person election. You're voting for the Democrats or the Republicans. So
it's not a two-person election. I want to make that very clear. I am not voting for either Harris or Trump. There are other people running.
What other conservative candidate would you support? They don't have to
I'm
be,
not a conservative, Destiny. I'm voting for Jill Stein.
You're voting for, okay. I think that if you support Donald Trump, yes, I think you should vote for Jill Stein. That is an option, true.
Antonio Inguez, thanks for your question, said, Kim, do you believe the 2020 election warrants terminating the Constitution? If so, please explain how that is not a threat to democracy. If not, why support the candidate who said that?
Well, for one, again, I don't support the candidate who said that. I'm not sure if the candidate actually said that or if that's an exaggeration of a position. Of course, I do not believe that the Constitution needs to be terminated, should be terminated. There are disputes that happen every single day at the Supreme Court. The Constitution is debated and it is refined to this day through court rulings. So, take it to the courts. And that's what Donald Trump did. And that's fine with me. Anybody could take it to the courts.
Only the best people you know are voting Jill Stein. That's all I'm going to say. I know some people who are considering voting Jill Stein. Only the best people you know are morally pure enough to vote for Jill Stein. Thank you for subscribing. I just got 2 new subscribers on YouTube. I did not see what your names are, and I only can see that if your account is public, but thanks for hanging out.
Thanks for your question. Said, how would you grade each major candidate on their foreign policy, strong or weak points of each? I suppose we'll just cover Harris. If that's so. I suppose if you want to cover Stein, that works, but we'll at least cover Harris.
You want me to go? Is this a question for me?
This is for both of you. So if you'd like to go first, you're more than welcome to.
Well, Jill Stein has excellent foreign policy. I think she's right on practically all of the foreign policy points that we have. Jill Stein, that is one of the reasons why I support Jill Stein, is I think that she is the most consistent, truly somebody that is looking at each of the different conflicts and saying, this is not America's problem. This is not something that we should be involved in. Kamala Harris has very much a Hillary Clinton foreign policy. She actually deviates even from Barack Obama, who had more of an anti-interventionist. In fact, if you really wanted to compare it, Donald Trump has a slightly more Barack Obama foreign policy than Kamala Harris does. Harris takes a stronger stance, and she's more in line with Hillary Clinton. So if you like what Hillary Clinton has done, if you think that she did an excellent job with foreign policy, then Kamala Harris, I suppose you would think that she's got excellent policy points.
Real quick, what's one good, what is a Jill Stein foreign policy point?
Ending the genocide in Gaza.
How?
By stopping support.
By making a phone call, dude. Jill Stein said she's going to make one phone call, just like Ronald Reagan did. All it would take to end this genocide, per Jill Stein, is making one phone call. She's just going to get it done, baby.
In Gaza.
How?
By stopping support of Israel. Israel is reliant on our support in order to continue doing what they're doing.
Okay, so Israel's not reliant on our support to continue doing what they're doing. They can absolutely fund themselves. I think...
Wait, what? Is that true? Egghead. A producer of Kim's show is Tara Reid. Okay. Okay. I didn't comment on that when it happened in 2020, and I don't like commenting on that kind of stuff. But yeah, that's very interesting. As far as like the SA allegation goes.
Doing what they're doing.
Okay, so Israel's not relying on our support to continue doing what they're doing. They can absolutely fund themselves. I think that one of the biggest red herrings for basically somebody who is a paid foreign asset or somebody who just knows nothing about foreign policy is usually when they talk about peace a lot in their foreign policy plan. Peace is a meaningless word. Nobody wants peace. People want justice. It's very easy if somebody's invading your village and wants to take over your entire country or take over your entire city to say, oh, well, let's just be peaceful and lay down our arms and let them take over everything and steal our economy and lead our country and dictate to us what we ought to do. Nobody wants peace. People want justice. They want to feel like something is happening that is satisfying satisfying the desires that they have as a nation, as a country, as they are entitled to in the world. So when Jill Stein says things like, I want to defund our military by like 75%, when she's saying things like, I want to delete over 700 US foreign military bases, when she's saying things like, I want to end all of our involvement in every single conflict ever, what she's actually saying is, I want to create more room on the planet to make the world multipolar. I want Russia to be deciding how Russia-Ukraine ends. I don't want the United States to have any involvement there. I want China to be signing deals between Saudi Arabia and Iran. I don't want the United States to be involved there. I want all of our
So Kim Iverson is probably going to say that she doesn't support warmongering like that, and she's going to defend Russia and China at some point. But usually they wash their hands of it. So essentially, like, if you vote for Jill Stein, with the Trump Kamala election, you'll say like, oh, they're both bad. You know, Trump and Kamala are both bad. The USA and Russia, they're both bad. But I'm just going to wash my hands of this. I don't got to make the hard moral decisions. I'm voting for no genocide. Or, you know, I'm voting for no wars because I don't want us to be anywhere in the world. Every country should be able to do what they want to do. And if Russia comes in and takes over every country, and China comes in and takes over every country and rules the entire world and institutes neo-fascism, then it's not my fault. I'm just the isolationist. It's always the same line. So I guess we're going to see which one she takes.
our foreign adversaries to be the ones that are dictating policy to the rest of the world. Because remember, just because the United States steps back from a leadership position doesn't mean nobody else is going to take their place, which is exactly what everybody that says peace, peace, peace like Jill Stein wants to happen. They want other countries to be those leaders and not the United States, for whatever reason.
Any pithy rejoinders, Kim, and then we'll go to the next question.
Why should the United States be controlling the entire world? We don't even have the majority of the population. So when we go to talk about democracy, why should this
It should be a global popular vote. Because apparently we have I mean, she probably does believe we have a global government right now, but that's a good argument. The country that has the highest population should make all the decisions, and then we'll have a new race, not a Cold War race, you know, not a space race, but a race to who can produce the most people, the most children. And then that's really that's a novel idea right there.
This nation that has 330 million be controlling a planet of 8 billion people, first of all. Secondly, we shouldn't have anything to do with these conflicts. They're not our conflicts. These are not our fights. If Israel can continue to fund itself, great. Why does my money need to go to their fight then, if that's the case? Then you should be advocating to stop sending support to Israel if they could take care of themselves. Why are we wasting my dollars?
Because I think the United States is probably the most moral country right now to head the world hegemony. I think that Europe has seen an unprecedented era of peace under United States leadership. What would be a country that would be better than the United States to take point on that? Is it going to be Russia, who wants to invade in all of their neighboring countries? Is it going to be China, who is abusing the entire continent of Africa and doesn't even give their own population the ability to vote in free and fair elections? What other country besides the United States would be best at the helm of the world?
Speaking of Russia, this might be a good opportunity.
Go ahead.
Ray Vol says, question for both debaters, is Putin a dictator? And will you denounce Russia's involvement with tenant media?
Is Putin?
Yeah, that is funny too. You could see a lot of crossover with like Nick Fuentes, Steve Bannon, Jill Stein, Kim Iverson, that one mayor of the Muslim city in Michigan that endorsed Trump, that banned all the pride flags. You could see the like same language across all of them.
Putin a dictator? Yeah, obviously, of course.
Well, I mean, what's a dictator?
A dictator is somebody that rules without having themselves able to be questioned by their population with free and fair elections. Oftentimes, it's through a singular party. Oftentimes, it's through a top-down authoritarian control, meaning they don't just control the state and the government like Putin does. They also control large swaths of the economy and the population through oligarchies, which he does. And they also tend to control the distribution of media through organizations like RT, which he does. That would be a dictator.
Well, then you just described the Democratic Party. I mean,
which major media organizations the Democratic Party dictate policy to?
CNN, MSNBC, all of the liberal mainstream media outlets that are taking direct talking points, speaking in unison. We see this all the time when they all come out saying the same exact thing, tweeting it all out, all in unison, like they got talking points from the DNC.
If that's possible, then why did all of the media attack Biden and force him to step down? If Biden is a dictator...
Biden's not the dictator. It's
who's the dictator?
The people behind.
Well, the people are the dictator? That's called a democracy.
The DNC.
The people?
It's not a democracy.
Who are the people? Who are the people? What is this cabal you speak of?
Whoever chose Kamala Harris, because it certainly wasn't the people.
The voter, well, we actually did when we voted for that ticket last
time.
You know, if Biden died, you know, Harris would have also just stepped up to be the leader of the ticket. If Biden died, would that have been anti-democratic?
Who are they?
Should George Bush continue to be president because people voted for him once? So if they vote for him once, it's okay to just keep putting the person in over and over and over again? I mean, that logic fails. You have to vote every single time. That's why we have democracy.
We vote in the elections, in the general elections. Yes, we do. We vote in the general elections. And typically, yeah, your incumbent does run again, over and over again, which is what George Bush did. Yeah.
Thanks. I'll check that out then, Egghead, in the Discord.
That's what happens.
Speaking of
Correct.
Oh yeah, another good quote that Jill Stein and her running mate said. They said that there is zero difference between Russian television, RT. There is zero difference between RT, the BBC, and also MSNBC. So Russian state television is the same as BBC and MSNBC. And the MSNBC is Russian television for Democrats. Although, by the way, MSNBC literally has Republican hosts who go after Democrats all the time. But these comparisons are always made by people like this. You know, Vladimir Putin is just like a dictator, just like you're describing, you described Hitler, you're basically describing the Democrats right now.
Elections. And typically, yeah, your incumbent does run again over and over.
By the way, again, Donald Trump literally just called for anyone who disagrees with him to go to prison. If it's a shame. They talk about our Supreme Court justices so meanly, so aggressively, so aggravatively. I think anyone who talks about our Supreme Court justices should go to jail. Go to jail if you burn the flag. He literally just called for that today. A member of Trump's cult attacked the media physically, and he said it's okay because he's on our team. Like, bro.
Over again, which is what George Bush did. Yeah, that's what happens. Correct.
Of the general
But wait. Do we not feel like Putin? Wait, so is Putin not a dictator?
I don't know if he's a dictator. I'm not Russian. I don't really care. It's
Reball.
not my country.
I'm not Russian. Oh, it's not my country. I can't say. I don't know if he's a dictator. I don't know, man. I can't tell. It's not my country. But ask me about Israel. Ask me.
Not my country. I don't deal with it.
Wait, do we not care then? What? Because the United States has to oppose.
No, we don't have to oppose. We don't have to get involved with other countries and other elections. The Russian people are strong people. They're not children. If they want to make change, they will. I don't need them to come and make change for me in my country, and I don't need to go over there and make change for them in theirs.
What if they want to go and make changes in other countries? You don't think the United States or anybody else has an obligation to help?
Do you think that the United States doesn't meddle in other countries' elections or stage coups?
I have no idea what that question was about. I'm asking if Russia wants to invade its neighbors, do you not think other countries have an obligation to help?
No, we don't have an obligation to help. If,
Okay, so
if a country can't defend its own borders, then we can help. It's not an obligation.
Wait. Okay. If a country cannot defend its own borders.
If a country can't defend its own borders, then
Was she about to say if a country can't defend its own borders, then they should not be a country? Or they should... Wait. What was she gonna say?
We can help. It's not an obligation.
Do you think that in World War II, do you think the United States should have stepped up to fight against Germany?
I think that the United States.
That's such an easy yes or no question. Should we have stepped up to fight against? It's such an easy yes or no question. Should the United States have stepped up to fight against Germany?
It's not an easy yes or no question. The United States decided it was in the United States' interest after the bombing of Pearl Harbor to go into that war. Prior to that point, the United States did not.
They're giving me. I'm asking you, should the United States?
Had there not been the bombing of Pearl Harbor,
No, actually, so how that went was FDR and a lot of other people were saying like, okay, we should probably get into this war. The entire world is at stake, but our people don't want to do it. So the American people, if you look at polling from before Pearl Harbor, the American people don't really care about like Hitler and what he was doing to Jewish people. And many Americans actually had a good view of Hitler. They thought Hitler was pretty favorable. But it took Pearl Harbor to bring U.S. into the war just because the American people would be consenting to America going into the war. There was already a whole propaganda campaign ready for when Pearl Harbor happened. And that was like a gift to those who wanted to get into the war from the U.S. But yeah, the American people did not care at all before they were involved about what was happening in Germany. As far as the population goes. So the populists at the time were probably very isolationist as well, because it wasn't popular before that bombing. But yeah, if it was up to a lot of Americans back then, we had a big neo-Nazi population as well. It's really interesting if you visit the Holocaust Museum. They do have all this available, by the way. In DC, they have a lot of good polling and videos on the actual American sentiment during this time and newspaper articles.
So we don't even know if we should have opposed the Nazis. Okay, so let's say that you see somebody who's taking over.
That you don't have to oppose.
Yeah, you can argue about that too. They didn't know in detail what was happening at the camps, but you can also say like, if they knew in detail, would they have cared? And a lot of the eugenics that Hitler used to justify what he was doing to Jewish people, Hitler got a lot of that information from eugenics in the United States, didn't he? Or a lot of that inspiration came from slavery in the U.S. and United States eugenicists. So if Americans did know the full extent, it's hard to say because we have information around the globe today, and I'm not just talking about like Palestine. but just around the world of humanitarian disasters that many Americans are able to just not care about that much because they're not directly affected by it. And in my opinion, I think it's largely because Americans don't care about these things until they are directly affected. Then they're ready to go into wars. Then they're ready to to have their self be involved to a larger extent. But even now with mass media and better information, it seems that Americans have similar tendencies.
Pearl Harbor, I don't know.
So we don't even know if we should have opposed the Nazis. Okay, so let's say that you see somebody who's
I'm not
taking
saying
over.
that you don't have to oppose the Nazis. I'm just not saying we need to go to war with every single person that we oppose.
I never said go to war with every single person we oppose. I just asked if we should.
And by the way, we could be talking about like a simple majority of who wants to do it. Of who wanted to get into the war during World War II. We could debate also how much of the American public wanted to stay out of it, and even the conversation between should we share resources, should we send weapons, is much different from should we put boots on the ground. So you could also say that Pearl Harbor was the big influence that made Americans say, okay, well, we got bombed, we are going to put boots on the ground, here's our war justification, because we were helping fund certain causes, but this made us give like a full-throated support of the war efforts and actually get into it officially.
To oppose the Nazis. I'm just not saying we need to go to war with every single person that we oppose.
I never said go to war with every single person we oppose. I just asked if we should fought in World War II against the Nazis. They didn't bomb us. Japan did, right? Maybe we should have just gone to war with Japan.
Well, I mean, we largely did, but then we went into Europe. We were begged by England to go in, and we went in. I'm not saying, look,
we were helping the Soviets beforehand, right? The only reason the Soviets could fight is because of Lend-Lease. It's because of our funding of the Soviets to give them enough raw materials. I think it's a really important point. I think it's kind of crazy that we can't say that Putin is a dictator, or that we can't say that any country on the planet should have an obligation to help other countries.
I don't think there's an obligation. You can go in if you feel like you need to go in. If I was alive during World War II, I probably would have said, yes, we need to go in. But that doesn't make it an obligation. There's no obligation.
Don't you have an obligation to your own people to create a better world?
Okay, I think that is a key point right there of what I was talking about. If Kim Iverson was around during World War II, would she be in favor of going in, as she's saying? And I truly think that who she is today is pretty determinate in saying that she would not be in favor of supporting England or whatever, the UK, whatever it was called at the time. Whatever countries, I'm tired, but whatever countries were asking the US to join at the time. Those powers in general, I don't think she would have been in favor of joining up with them, based off her logic today with the dictatorships that we have more than enough information about today that she does not want us to protect against. Because, like, what we're doing with Ukraine and sending them just, like, weapons is light work, is so minor. It's severely minor. Like, it's levels, it's like a million levels of magnitude, like of extremes away from World War II. Us just sending funding and a few weapons to Ukraine is so far away from what the commitment to World War II was. It's really, I really don't think she would have been for joining in that war at all.
Let's say an obligation to your own country, your own people.
So let's pretend for instance, let's say for one second, let's say we don't have a child's view of foreign policy. What if a country was invading Mexico to the south, and the country was called the Kill All People country, and we saw them about to invade Mexico? Wouldn't it behoove us to help Mexico to resist the invasion of the Kill All People country before they're on our border?
It would probably be in our best interest because Mexico's on our border, so we wouldn't want them coming into a nation that's on our border. So yes, that would be something that we would probably want to do. But again, it's not an obligation.
I hate to do this. Rayball has another question. They say for both, please explain Trump's platform for the 2024 election. Not sure.
Well, he has a concept of a platform. I think we know that much.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't pay much attention to Trump's platform because I'm not voting for Donald Trump.
Gavin Lockhart says Destiny.
Okay, here's another four-dimensional way of thinking to say that she is paid by Russia. So if Russia is funding a bunch of different media, bot farm accounts to share false information, if they are funding Elon Musk buying Twitter, if they're funding a lot of Donald Trump's financial ventures, if they're funding all of this, informational warfare propaganda for America, if there are 100,000 people in America who watch Kim Iverson, who are influenced by this Russian campaign, which Russia paid for, and those people who are influenced by Russia are now donating to Kim Iverson, I would argue that would count as Russia paying Kim Iverson almost directly through those people who are supporting Kim Iverson now, giving her money I don't know what munding is. Again, I'm tired. But giving her money. And that audience capture is actually Russian capture. So I think you can pretty confidently say that Kim Iverson is being paid directly by Russia.
What are your thoughts on the Kamala Harris FBI prosecuting the, am I saying this right, Uruhu movement for having Zoom meetings with a Russian? Because that seems completely undemocratic and anti-speech.
Can you pronounce it again, or what was this question?
Yeah.
Uruhu, U-H-U-R-U.
U-H-U-R-U.
Oh, the Uruhus. So what was the question about the Uruhus?
You say, Destiny, what are your thoughts on the Kamala Harris FBI prosecuting the...
Yeah, okay, I like that. Money funding, munding. I'm gonna have to use that. Have it become a thing I actually say. There's a lot of munding for this project.
Uruhu's movement for having Zoom meetings with a Russian, because that seems completely undemocratic and anti-free speech.
I don't know anything about that particular issue, so I wouldn't be able to speak on it.
The Uruhus were charged with, it's similar to sort of what's gone on with Tenet Media a little bit, where they were accused of being Russian assets, essentially funded by Russia. They went to court. It was the Biden administration that went after them. They went to court and they actually just won their court case. They are found to not be Russian assets at all.
Got it. This one coming in from, do appreciate it. Chase Hatchet says, okay, you got that one. Sommer, thanks very much, says to both. There's a movement in the far right now with figures like Fuentes, Gary Uppy, Destiny's buddy, that are disavowing Trump since he's tamer / not pushing as hard on MAGA issues. Curious to get your opinions on that as left-leaning people.
I mean, if you court crazy racist people, you're obviously going to get crazy racist people as part of your movement. It's not surprising at all to me. I mean, I don't know what else to say.
I don't know anything about these people enough to make any sort of characterization about them.
Otto says, I wonder if Kim knows that in other democratic countries, parties just introduce their candidates without having primaries.
I don't compare ourselves to other countries. I would like to see a democracy in my country, and that's what I advocate for.
This one from George.
Also, it seems like,
says,
so for this Uruhu group, so they were convicted of conspiring with a Russian agent. They were acquitted on one charge and they were convicted of another. So.
Okay, so I was applying with Google to be able to, if you pay for your content to be boosted and you do political content, you need to be verified by Google or Meta or Facebook, whatever, in order to do that. So there's a verification process, and I have gotten turned down so many times from YouTube monetization, from advertising on Meta, from advertising on Gmail, and it's really just beating me down. And I just got another denial from being able to advertise on Google or YouTube about my content, because I want to throw like $5 in there every now and then. You know, sometimes I have a good little YouTube short and I want to put $5 in helping that get shared, because I think it could do good numbers if enough people see it. But I just can't get it approved, man. Really, really sad out here. You know, they'll approve any Russia. You know, anyone from Russia, they can approve them in seconds. But me, little old me, I can't get approved.
So they didn't beat everything, right?
I'm not 100% certain. I believe that they beat their case.
Okay, they were handed a mixed verdict. You sounded very certain, but it sounds like they were actually convicted of conspiring with Russian agents, but they were acquitted of the more serious charge, which would have been acting as agents of a foreign government. So I'm guessing this is a type of FAR violation, but it wasn't the worst type of FAR violation. But.
Yeah, so they had some contact with Russians.
Well, no, it doesn't sound like they just had some contact with Russians. I don't think there's a federal charge for just having contact with Russians. There was probably federal charges, though, relating to conspiring with foreign agents and not making a declaration of that to FARA, which is the law of the United States.
Mm.
Folks, we won't be able to take any more questions, so do appreciate your questions, but we want to wrap up by a decent time. So for sure, please, no more questions. George Connolly was up, I think, a little bit late to the party. They seem to think, Kim, that you're for Trump. So they say, is Kamala, or for Kim, is Kamala becoming the nominee more or less democratic than Trump's electoral plot and attempted insurrection? I think you'd probably disavow. So Richie Constitution says, Destiny, I don't want to speak for you, though. I want to give you a chance if you'd like.
I just don't. I think that whatever the procedure was that Trump was attempting after the 2020 election, going through the courts is the proper procedure. If there are other constitutional procedures that he was using in order to challenge that, I think that's completely fair. So I think it's fair for an American to challenge an election.
To be clear, Trump wasn't just challenging the election. He was trying to break the law because he lost all of his election challenges. But
this one from Jonathan Gendler says, Kim, there weren't presidential primaries before 1912, before 1976. You did not always need them to win them for the party's nomination. And say, go ahead.
Yeah, the country hasn't always been perfect. We've had a lot of dark moments in our history that have been highly anti-democratic. For example, slavery, or saying that blacks were two-fifths of a person. So we have evolved. We've become more democratic. We should be becoming more and more democratic as time goes on, as we become a more enlightened people.
You got it. Space Miner says, considering an ever-increasing nanny state backed by police powers, what would the enforcement powers of police look like under either opponent? I think they mean in this case Harris or Jill Stein.
What is the question?
Yeah, I'm not really sure.
Good question. They say, considering an ever-increasing nanny state backed by police power, what would the enforcement of these powers look like, whether it be from Harris or from Stein?
I don't know which powers they're referring to exactly.
I would say in my conversations with Jill.
No, I didn't do anything wrong, but I know I have multiple accounts, and it's really been annoying because I mentioned earlier in the stream, when I did YouTube before a few years ago, most of the income I got from it was from memberships and super chats and ads, obviously. And I can't get that completed, and it's been really, really annoying. But yeah, I don't know. I have to make sure I have my accounts right, verify all my information. Hopefully they approve me for monetization soon, because it's really, really frustrating. And I was saying before that I do like my regular job, then I do DoorDash, and if I can get my monetization on YouTube again, I don't need to do DoorDash. But I don't know if I did anything wrong, necessarily. But yeah, it is what it is, you know?
Jill Stein, she's very much against the surveillance state and this labeling of misinformation. So I would just think that under Harris, you know, we've seen a definite, under Democrats in general, a ramping up of these ideas of surveillance and misinformation and flagging people and tagging people. So I would say that there would be a ramping up of that. I think, I'm not really sure what the question was. That's my best answer.
You got.
Thank you. This is going to be my like 15th time applying for monetization again. Because you lose monetization if you're not active for a certain amount of time. And I wasn't active for 3 years, so they took it away from me.
I think that fits it. Tip 35 says, Kim, thanks for coming on. Can you explain what the three, let's see, I don't know what that. Dan Shire says, for both, can you articulate any specific Biden-Harris policies that were detrimental to our economy?
Biden-Harris policies detrimental to the economy. The advocating for lockdowns was the biggest detrimental
advocating for something.
Economy.
I don't think it's a policy.
Yeah, they were advocating.
And they happened under Donald Trump, so.
Well, Democrats were advocating for them. They wanted the lockdowns. It was, again, probably
We're not talking
a
about
political
Democrats.
point.
It was Harris and Biden.
Well, Harris and Biden are the heads of the party, and they were directing the people that were in positions of power. Not only that, but Biden did do
Harris and Biden are not
mandates,
the
which
heads of the
definitely
party.
affected the.
Not
They
true.
are. You don't think that the president is the head of the party?
No.
Who's the head of the party?
It would be the chair of the DNC or the chair of the RNC. Remember, if the president was the head of the party, then who would have... You already admitted this when you said that Biden was made to step down by the actual party heads, right? So even you
Well, the
don't agree
party-
with this.
The powers that.
Well, the powers that be, the powers. She didn't like. You have to remember whenever you talk to someone like this, she's not talking about who's actually in charge of the party. She's talking about the secret Jewish cabal. Obviously.
That were behind Biden. Yeah, he's supposed to be the party head. That is the way it's supposed to be set up, but they clearly have mechanisms to undermine that,
Okay,
which
so
is
then
fine.
clearly he's not the head of the party, and when the lockdowns were happening, Biden wasn't president, so he definitely wasn't the head of the party then, even if we do say the president's head of the party.
Yeah,
so.
good point. We need law and order, but we should not have a surveillance state. Like, pick a political position. Like, she's just saying things that sound popular.
Yeah.
Populism.
Also,
Okay.
does the Green Party even have open primaries? Or do
I'm
they
not
just have-
sure.
Hold on, if primaries are like one of the most important...
How do you not know? How are you voting for Jill Stein, but you don't even know how the process works? Jill Stein literally just like woke up one day and said, hey, I'm going to be the candidate, and became the candidate for the Green Party. They have zero infrastructure set up at all for anything.
ideas of a democracy do you now, which for some
Yeah,
reason is incredibly important. I don't even know
I don't
if
think they have open primaries, and that's a state-by-state thing anyway.
I think they don't. No, it's not state by state. It's a private
Yes, it is.
organization.
An open primary is state-by-state.
No,
Some
primaries
states-
can be held however you want them to be.
No,
They're
it's state-by-state.
No.
Each state decides. Each
No, they
party
don't.
decides within each state
No, they
how they're
don't.
going to do their primaries.
That is
Yes,
not
some states
true.
you have to register for the party in order to vote in that party. Some states allow you to vote in the primaries without registering. That's an open primary.
states might change how you register for how you vote, but how a primary is run is decided by the party. That's why, for instance, like Nebraska could
By
say
each state. Each state decides. That's why some states have caucuses, some states have primaries, some force you to register.
Okay, she is saying something that's not true, but I do have a question off of that. If a state that's a closed primary for the Democratic primary wants to become an open primary, would that be done through state law, or would that be done through... I'm trying to think. That would be a state law, right? You just have to switch the rules in your state to say that any voter can vote for any political party. That's not like a thing dictated by the Democratic Party, right? That's done state by state, because you still vote for Republicans and Democrats on the same like ballot technically.
As a member of that party in order for you to vote in their primary. Some states don't. You just
do you
have
think
to
if
request the
Florida
ballot.
said we're going to change this so that we're actually going to be the first party in the next primary cycle instead of Iowa, would Florida be allowed to do that?
Florida is not allowed to dictate the elections in Iowa. No, not even the Florida Democratic
not
Party.
the elections. Let's say Florida says, we know when the Iowa caucuses are. We're going to hold our primaries before Iowa. Do you think Florida would be allowed to do that?
Yeah, Florida can do that if they want to do that.
Because what happens is both parties say, okay, well, we're not going to count your primary votes. That's what would happen.
Well, they can say that, but that doesn't mean that the state can't actually hold that primary. They certainly can. This was protected in the Democratic Party.
They can
the
hold
Democrats just had this challenge.
I'm sorry, but I don't think you understand that these are private parties. I think
it would be. Okay, so like in Pennsylvania, for example, you can only vote for Democrats if you're a Democrat, only Republican if you're a Republican, because it's closed primary. If you wanted to make Pennsylvania an open primary state, so you can vote for a Democrat candidate if you're a Republican or an independent, that would be something passed in the state General Assembly. The Democratic National Committee does not have any decision over that. But what destiny means as far as an open primary is concerned is the nomination process and choosing a candidate for those parties. Did the Green Party have a true open primary process to decide their candidate? Because even when you're voting for a political party during the open and closed primaries, you're still voting for who you're suggesting the leader of that party be. So I think that's what Destiny's saying, is that you're not literally changing state by state how the candidate is decided, but you can change how you make that suggestion to the party state by state, if that makes sense.
you think that these are like part of the government.
I understand that they're private parties, but the states decide. So when New Hampshire decided that they were going to hold their primary,
No, it's not our fault, Egghead. It's Kim Iverson's fault for not being able to have a sound discussion about literally anything. It's her fault that we were confused, because her phrasing of everything is absolutely the worst, dumbest way to talk about literally any topic. So we were scrambling around to try and we were trying to use her terms to talk about this.
when they wanted to hold their primary, that was challenged. And the New Hampshire primary, the New Hampshire Constitution says that they go before a certain number of states. And when Democrats wanted to make that change, Democrats did not get to unilaterally make that change in New Hampshire. They actually had to contest it with them in courts.
Because this is the agreement that the parties have with the states. But if a state decided that they just don't want to participate, or they want to do it,
D Manlet is right here. State party. Yes, but DNC would get mad. Interesting. Only fact.x or _x.
they can do that. But then a party can say, okay, well, we're not going to count your primary votes. They don't have an obligation, the delegates, to listen to states. Otherwise, every state would want to go first, right? Why does Iowa, New Hampshire get to go first?
Sure, but that doesn't change the fact that the states decide. The state chairs, the state branches of the party decide. So I'm saying with the Green Party, back to the point, is I'm not sure how they operate in every single state.
I think they just do electors. I don't think they actually have open primaries where citizens vote at all, which is interesting to me, given that seemed like such an important part to you for things to be considered democratic, and you support Jill Stein.
There were plenty of other candidates that ran in the Green Party. I interviewed many of them. So they did actually have challengers to Jill Stein. They didn't just anoint her. They had several other people. People voted on that.
Well, if you're going to say that, then in that case, that was the exact same thing that happened in the Democratic Party. There were delegates that had pledged for Biden, and then Biden supported Kamala Harris when he stepped down, and those delegates decided to vote for Kamala Harris. They could vote for other people they want to.
Yeah, they didn't really give any other options, and they pretty much told everybody that they had to support Harris, and that was it.
They didn't.
The Green Party did not do
Delegates
that.
are allowed to vote for who they want to, but
Thank you very much, Sommer, for your question. Asked, what do each of you think about the recent assassination attempts? Obviously on Trump.
you shouldn't be trying to kill people in the United States for our political system, so probably not good. Don't do that.
Right.
This one from Leslie Lewis says, did Trump purposely block the right-leaning immigration bill that Republicans have wanted for years? Yay or nay?
Yep.
I think we covered that.
This one from Dan Shire says,
And I think another thing. Okay, wait. So if they move, are there any states where? Okay, so they're talking about order. So if New Hampshire decided, New Hampshire's first. If a different state wanted to be first, are there some states that allow the Democratic primary to be voted on a different day from the other elections? And are there other states that tie those days together? So like the Democratic and Republican primary will be on the same day in that state. I'm just trying to clarify on that one topic.
we got that. Boredom says, why are
Wait,
there
that was
so
a yes
many
then, right?
former-
He did intentionally block that. That was shot down.
I'm sure, just like Democrats blocked him previously.
Wait,
That's
which
what
Democrat
political-
what was a Democratic leader who shot down a bill that had the support of both halves of Congress?
I'm sorry, what?
What Democratic leader shot down a bill that had the support of both houses of Congress to pass?
Which bill are you talking about?
Well, I'm talking about the immigration bill that was going to be passed.
I'm saying that Democrats blocked blocked border bills previously.
And the
We
issue
already
with this
had this
border bill,
discussion.
well, sure, but you're
So I'm seeing that it's more common to have these primaries on the same day, and some states don't want to provide materials to have two separate election days. But I'm also seeing that state laws and parties can dictate different days.
You're just wrong. You're making a horrible comparison here. There was a bill that was ready to go that the Republicans and Democrats supported in Congress, and Donald Trump said, no, keep the border open. I want to win the next election.
So then Republicans apparently opposed it because he doesn't have the power to just
And
say,
it depends
don't
on
pass
what
this
kind
bill,
of
you
race
can't
it
pass
is,
this bill. People
too.
had to actually vote on that, right? So a bunch
If
of
it's a
Republicans
presidency
decided to go
race or
along
like
with what he wanted.
Yes, they were
How is
bullied
that
by
any
Trump.
different than what
Governor or
happened
a
when
state
Democrats were
legislator.
also blocking any sort of border bills when Donald Trump was president?
Because Democrats not agreeing with the bill and not wanting to vote for it is different than an independent leader like a Hillary Clinton or a Barack Obama or Biden saying, guys, don't vote on this piece of legislation. We want
How
to
do you
keep
know
the border open.
how each Democrat felt? I'm sure that there were Democrats that actually did agree, but they went with the party line.
Because we can look and see what they say publicly, and we have...
Yeah, what they say publicly is to support the party line.
Okay, well, what they don't say, supporting the party line is different than this leader was telling us that we need to change our vote. The Republicans were on board with the border bill.
What's the difference? The party line is from the leadership.
The difference is that there's a party line that people probably believe in, and there are individual candidates that might put themselves over the party or the country, which is what Donald Trump did. The Republicans were ready to support a bill in Congress, and Donald Trump said, don't support it, I want to win the next election. Democrats don't do that. They might support or not support something because of what the party tends to support, because they tend to agree with it, which is why they're in the party, but that's different than one leader coming out and saying, hey guys, change your vote, we're not going to go ahead and vote on this thing, we want to keep it open.
Okay.
Like when Republicans shut down the government, or like when they lose their speaker seat in the House, or any other monumental ways they fail in governing.
I just saw a burst of viewers on the Google. I am too tired to be doing this right now. I swear, working like a regular job and all that stuff, and then doing this is so tiring. I cannot speak. But I saw what did I even say? A increase in viewers on the Google Shorts. I said it again. The YouTube Shorts. Please drop a like and subscribe if you're here to hang out. Okay. How long? Spencer said we're almost at the part where she gets really mad. So 14 minutes left, 1.25 times speed. I'm going to get through it.
I mean, I don't know how you think you know what everybody in Congress is thinking individually.
Well, I can just look at their public statements and I can see the things that they say. It's pretty easy, actually. When you live in a
Public
democracy.
statements are different. Okay.
This one from Boredom says,
I saw this recently too, where you're not allowed to decide someone's opinion based off what they like do or say. You just can't know what someone's opinion is ever. I forget what topic this was about too, but I feel like Destiny was talking to someone else who said this. Like, how am I supposed to go off their public statements and like their positions and know they actually believe that? How am I supposed to verify these things?
why are there so many former, I don't know if they're, like I said, late to the party or what?
Regular stream schedule, it would probably be, so like I'm traveling this weekend, but if I have to say when I'm usually streaming, it would be starting at like 10 p.m. or 11 p.m. I don't know what days. I can try to do a schedule if I get a consistent audience again. If I'm streaming to Twitch, YouTube Shorts, and also like, I don't know, TikTok or something, then I can get a more consistent schedule. But like I said, it's really hard to justify having like a stream schedule when I'm like not able to get any type of money from it at all. Because like, I love doing it, but the editing it requires to like produce content and the internet and having time alone in my apartment, or at least like when no one's awake, it's really difficult to find that time. So it needs to be at night, which is very tiring. But yeah, I could try to get something more consistent. But you could look for me around like 10 p.m., 11 p.m. Eastern time typically.
They say, why are there so many former left-wingers turning into rank-and-file
Eastern.
Republicans? Maybe they're, in other words, I think that they know that you're not a Trump supporter, Kim. I think they mean other people. So I think they're trying to say that, for example, RFK is kind of falling in line and going, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I'll look for it. I'm going to try to not pause after this. But yeah, at my peak, it was around like 2021, right after January 6th. I predicted January 6th, which was really nice. But I would average probably until February of that year of 2021 around like 150 concurrent viewers, which is like really good, obviously, for me, an really small channel. So if I could even get back to having like 50 concurrent viewers on average between every platform, I'd be really happy. I think that's a good size to have a nice conversation in the chats and everything. Around 50 to 100. If I'm streaming on all those different sites, then like maybe 50 to 100 combined. Even right now we have, between all three, there's no one on Twitch because I did it to my wrong Twitch account. But even right now we have 35 people watching from YouTube Shorts and the regular YouTube stream. So, you know, with no audience base, and thank you for subscribing, Tyler, that just popped up. With no audience base, me not knowing how to stream, we already have like 35 people here right now. So I think it's definitely reasonable to aim for those numbers.
A lot of Democrats are switching over to the Republican Party. I mean, I think we're seeing a shakeup of the parties, and we're seeing a lot of people from the right, like Dick Cheney, move to the left. Or I wouldn't say right to left. I would say perhaps the parties are shifting themselves. So we've seen, you know, like a lot of the intelligence community, the warmongering community, the military-industrial complex, the Dick Cheneys of the world supporting Democrats, and we're seeing people who
warmongering
had previously
community.
been Kennedy Democrats now supporting Republicans.
I think what you're actually saying is just there are some people very far on the left who are anti-establishment who hate the United States, and these people find themselves in easy company when it goes to aligning with people on the very far right. And then I think that the fact that like the whole MAGA people are generally just anti-establishment means that it's very easy to get anybody else that hates the United States or hates the establishment or takes foreign money from people like Russia or Iran or China to all go and join their groups as well. So I think that it's a pretty easy alliance when you get a bunch of people that hate the state, hate the government, hate the institutions, and are just in general anti-establishment. And they
I don't
stand
pretend to know how people are thinking or feeling, nor do I have any desire to insult people.
How, you don't know what people are thinking, or how do you make comments on anything publicly?
I'm not going
ever?
to sit here and claim that all of these people hate America when they're participating in the democratic process. I'm not going to make those types of characterizations or call them basket of deplorables or do any sort of insulting of my fellow Americans because they're participating in democracy and they decide that the person that you want to vote for is not who they want to vote for.
Okay, well, that's great. I will call out people who I think take money from other countries and they don't declare it. People like who worked under Tenet Media, other people that are still operating in this media environment, people like yourself probably. I think it's worth calling those people out when they have other kinds of allegiances to other countries.
Are you claiming, are you making it, did you just say that I'm taking money from any other, what did you just say?
Probably, almost surely, yes. And then number two, I think that it's worth calling out people that I feel have anti-American ideas. So for instance, when Donald Trump says he wants to destroy the Constitution or suspend the Constitution, I think that that's worth calling out. The Constitution exists above all three branches of government.
You're a piece of shit. Let me just say it. You're a piece of shit. Sorry, you just are. To make that kind of characterization of me, to make a claim that you know nothing about, I've never taken a single dime from any other country, not even this country. I am completely independent. And for you to make that sort of characterization, that sort of slander, that sort of slur right here in front of everybody, you're a piece of shit. And I speak for a lot of people when I say that.
I'm sure you do, and I'm sure they're all flying to Moscow right now, comrade. Thank you.
Because we going to this one. George says, does insurrection count as a violent?
Oh, the best kind of anger is when someone look at her. When someone just knows they lost and another person's completely calm and unaffected and they're like raging so much. It's like the classic.
Say it.
Oh no.
You know what? I'm about to say it. Okay. Say it. I don't care that you broke your elbow.
It's kind of like, I don't know, dude.
To Moscow right now, comrade. Thank you.
Because we going to this one. George says, does insurrection count as a violent crime, or is that excusable? They say if it's Trump that's doing it rather than Harris, is it okay?
I think insurrection is always bad when you're trying to destroy the United States of America. But I don't know, maybe some people just consider that democracy or challenging things in the courts, I guess. I don't know.
I think it's perfectly fair to challenge elections. If that's what people want to do, people can challenge elections.
This one from I Killed Earl. Say, for Kim, how have Biden and Kamala's border policies been a failure when they've removed 4.4 million illegal immigrants, while Trump removed 1.5 million, according to...
Yeah, thank you so much for subscribing. Yeah, this is really low-key, tiny stream trying to get this stuff working. But got 10 new subscribers tonight, so thank y'all for hanging out. I think Piers Morgan, or whatever, is releasing like a new panel pretty much every day. So I'm considering just doing a few days of just like doing those panels, like doing reactions to those, and then doing my normal videos throughout the day. Because that's really low effort streaming. So if I can do like my typical topical videos in the day, that'll take me like an hour or two to record those really quick. Sort of like my Jill Stein one that got like 2.5 thousand views. Pretty good. Then at night I could just like react to Piers Morgan, or if there's something else happening, might just end up doing that kind of stream schedule, maybe around like 10 p.m. Eastern time, 11 p.m. Eastern time, going through that.
To MPI.
Well, first of all, we've had a lot more people coming through the border at this point than when Donald Trump was president. A lot of it had to do with the entire globe shutting down and immigration just being low and migration being low around the entire globe during a certain period of time. But I think it's rhetoric, and that is one of the points that a lot...
Oh, we got a treat. We got a treat in the YouTube Shorts chat. A very good treat. Okay. Judge Joe Brown just dropped a video of trans tampon Tim in drag twerking, LOL. And yes, that was him. You called men in the chat voting for Kamala. Haha. I really like that one. Thank you so much for dropping that comment. I really appreciate that one. That is so beautiful. Thank you for sharing. Thank you.
a lot of people who are very much against Donald Trump, they don't like his rhetoric. Well, rhetoric is what Democrats were using when they were basically saying that border crises were not really crisis, that this was just some sort of a made-up racist talking point or political point, and they were ignoring the border. So even if they are now scrambling to do something about it, it doesn't make up for the fact that they undermined the issue for a very long time.
Yeah, the undermining of the issue happened when Donald Trump told them not to pass a piece of legislation that would have helped with the border. Donald Trump undermined that more than any other person. There's a reason why Obama, and Piers loves to say this every time somebody does his program, why Barack Obama was called the deporter-in-chief. The problem with the border crises is that a lot of them are made up by Republicans. That's why Donald Trump humiliated himself on stage when he was screaming like a senile old man about watching Haitians eating dogs on TV, and he had no actual response to claims that were basically fabricated in front of a city council by a neo-Nazi on YouTube.
This from Oni Chan says, Destiny, seriously, why are my tax dollars going towards a genocide instead of improving our infrastructure?
It's not one or the other. Biden, thankfully, can fund our foreign interests, and he can do legislation to improve our infrastructure at the exact same time. we can walk and chew gum at the same time. Whether or not we want to support our allies internationally and what types of things we want to fund domestically just have to do with the types of legislative accomplishments you can make in Congress.
This one from George Connolly says, Kim, was Trump's, let's see, we got James Zog says, after Pearl Harbor, Germany declared war on the United States. They were obliged because they had an alliance with Japan.
What was that? What is he saying?
It said, after Pearl Harbor, Germany declared war on the United States. They were obliged.
Oh, I see.
Because they had an alliance with Japan.
Well, yeah, and we went to war, right? I mean, we went to, but it wasn't the obligation of going to, the obligation is when you're attacked, your people are attacked, right? Then you do go to war. That is what people do. But the question was whether or not we're obliged to go to war on behalf of another country. We're obliged to go to war on behalf of ourselves. We can then resolve that war or engage in that war however we see fit, whatever we think is the best way to get to the end result that we want to get to. But we're not, my point was, we're not obliged to go to war. We do have agreements. We have NATO agreements, which does make us obliged. At that time during World War II, we did not. So I wouldn't call it an obligation. There are times that we can choose where we think it's in our best interest to go to war, or we think it's a moral interest to go to war, or an.
You mean communism law, Kamala. What's better, communism Kamala, Kamala, or Kamala, Kami mommy,
ethical interest to go to war, but I wouldn't call it an obligation.
I think that if we want to keep trade free and open like we have for the entirety of the planet, I think that if we want to keep the world at relative peace, which it has enjoyed more than it has at any other point in history under U.S. leadership, I think that we have an obligation both to the entire world and to our own citizens to ensure that that peace stays as well as it can with the United States at the head of it. I don't think that a Russia that has invaded Moldova, that has invaded Georgia, that is invading Ukraine, that deploys its paramilitary to the Middle East and to Africa, I don't think that letting Russia control the world is good.
Oh, speaking of invading Georgia, did you see that Donald Trump's campaign accidentally used the picture of the country Georgia in a Georgia campaign ad?
Letting China, a country that is or is not currently maybe genociding their Uyghur citizens, that has its eyes set on Taiwan, I don't think letting them control the world would be good. I think that for the most part, I think the West has largely enjoyed the U.S. being in charge of things, and I think that most of the world probably enjoys, for the most part, the United States being at the head of things, rather than people like Putin or Xi Jinping.
This one from Pondering Politics and George Connolly have basically the exact same question, coincidentally. They had asked, for Kim, they say, was Trump's electoral plot an attempted insurrection more or less democratic than the DNC replacing Biden with Kamala in particular?
I don't believe January 6th was an insurrection attempt by Donald Trump. Maybe there were people inside of J6 that, you can maybe make an argument that there were some sinister individuals who were involved in that, but I don't think that there was some top-down directive that came from Donald Trump or anyone in the Republican Party. And as far as
how can you say that when you said earlier you don't know anything about what happened? You said over and over again.
I do know. I know enough to know that from the investigations that there was no directive that they found coming from the top down.
That's literally he's under indictment right now by the federal government, by Jack Smith. How can we say that we know?
Just to hear the rest of it from Kim. Go ahead, Kim.
Yeah, there was no directive coming down from the top. There's no evidence of this whatsoever. They can make any charge that they want. They can charge you with anything that they want, Destiny. You can fight that in court. Trump will not be he will not be convicted of an insurrection, of plotting an insurrection where there's no plans or plots that were there. So, individuals behaving however individuals behave is completely different than coming from the top. So I don't think that I don't think there was an insurrection coming from the top.
Yeah, I think it was pretty obvious that there was. I think that there was a plan in place the entire time to have Donald Trump subvert the peaceful transfer of power. I think he followed that up by goading everybody on the January 6th. When people say stop the steal, when they say we need Mike Pence to do the right thing, he's talking about stopping the steal of the election because he wants to remain president. When he's talking about Mike Pence.
Okay, wait, really quick. And I know not everyone can see this, but this is what I'm talking about if you haven't seen it. So former President Donald Trump's campaign launched targeted digital ads on social media over the weekend focusing on local Republicans with a beautiful backdrop of an endless mountain range in Georgia. And yeah, this is exactly what the Appalachian Mountain looks like. Yeah. And yeah, it was the wrong Georgia. Very nice.
It's doing the right thing. He's talking about
how far down does the Appalachian Mountain go? I have to look this up. I forget now.
Mike Pence choosing him to be president. When he tells people we're going to march down Pennsylvania Avenue and we're going to give them the strength that they need to do the right thing, he's talking about them objecting to the certification of the election, using intimidation and violence if they have to do it. And they were successful to some extent. They managed to delay the certification of the vote. But unfortunately, there were too many proud, strong men, most of whom were Republicans, people like Barr, people like Pence, other lawmakers and other bureaucrats inside the White House that managed to stop and thwart Donald Trump's plot to insurrect and coup the government.
You make a lot of assumptions about what a person's thinking inside of their mind when they haven't actually said anything. That is.
What do you think Donald Trump hasn't said that I don't know?
Well, he never said, go down there and stop them and do all. He said, we're going to go down there and peacefully protest. That's what he.
Oh, it does. It does. The Appalachian Mountains, they peak into Georgia. They stop in Georgia, actually. They go from Georgia to Maine. Wow.
Actually said. You then want to put something else in his mind and in his mouth, just like you do for all of your fellow Americans.
He said stop the steal. What does stop the steal mean?
They believed that the election was stolen.
Okay,
that is something that is fine for a person to believe.
Okay, and if you think the election was stolen, and if you think the election is stolen, and you send a ton of people down to the Capitol building where they're certifying
protest.
Why would you peacefully protest a stolen election?
That's what he said.
No, he didn't say. He said, "I know you're going to go peacefully protest."
And we're going to peacefully
protest. He didn't say that. No, you're putting words in his mouth. He never said that quote. You just invented that quote.
Then you tell me the words that he said when he said, "Go down there and violently take it."
No, he said we need to fight like hell. You need to fight like hell. You're going to lose your country. He said we need to give these weak Republicans, something to fight for. We need to give them a backbone. We need to help the strong ones. They're going to help us. Like he made these statements over, and I read you 20 statements that he made. It was an hour speech.
Destiny, you make things up.
Well, he's the one under federal indictment.
What people are thinking. You make things up about what people are saying.
What have I made up? I haven't made up a single thing. You just made up a quote from
land.
What fantasy land?
You need to focus on facts.
I am focusing on facts. Well, I do focus on what people say. You're the one that you didn't even know what the legal theories were that you were purporting earlier.
People that support RFK Jr. are just hateful. They hate the country.
Yeah, a lot of them do. They do. Absolutely. 1,000,000%.
Look, you're just making stuff up.
What am I making up? You haven't said a single thing I'm making up.
This is why. Okay, so here's a big debate, and I know Destiny has talked about this before, but do you just call out these people right away when you realize they are lying, when you realize they are talking about a fake reality, they don't know their facts? Do we call them out right away? Because we try to seem even, we try to seem controlled, we try to not be emotional, we try to not shut off an opposing audience. But if we don't call them out for being conspiracy theorists and say they live in a false reality and all that stuff, if we are not very aggressive, if we don't smack this candy bar out of their hands and tell that kid, no, you cannot do this anymore. You cannot punch the dog anymore. The dog, okay, bad example. They're eating the dogs. But if you don't call them out, they are going to call you out eventually. Everything they do, if you do not give them the strongest rebuttal possible and refute their entire existence, eventually they are going to accuse you of living in a fake reality after talking about literal nonsense for over an hour. How harsh do we go, and how quick do we go harsh? And who do we choose to be harsh with when it comes to saying you believe in something that's not real? Because I feel like in your private life with a family member, that doesn't work unless if you want to never talk to them again. But in the media, we need to cut the bullshit right away, I assume.
Tip 35 says, this is our last one. Thanks for I got to tell you, folks, we really do appreciate our speakers. It's been a true pleasure. We've got one last question, but I do want to remind you, they are linked both in the description box and in the title. You can click right there on the hyperlink in the title, and they're also linked in the
one more question. I'll let it play out, but I'm pretty much done for tonight. Time to go pass out, and by pass out I mean lay in bed for 3 hours until I'm able to fall asleep for 2 hours, and when the sun comes up and I can't fall asleep anymore, and then be sleep deprived for another day. But anyway, thanks so much for hanging out. I'll try to stream again tomorrow around 10 or something like that. I'm gonna try to record some segments tomorrow maybe. And you all can let me know. As far as streaming goes, I can just stream when I record segments too. It'll be more slow moving. It won't be a direct reaction, but I can still hop online every now and then to say what's up for funsies. But y'all let me know if you want me to come on and freestyle rap. We could do that too. We could be rapping, kick a little freestyle. Nothing too much, just get warmed up, get the pen out, get the pen working, But yeah, thanks for hanging out tonight. Thanks for new people subscribing. Any content recommendations, please drop them in Discord or just directly message me on Discord. If you like my stuff, a good donation is just like telling me what you think will work good in the algorithm. I am open to ideas. If you see a story happening and you think it would be good to react to, and you have a good video that needs a response, please tell me. I will make content that you want me to make and react to videos you want me to react to that you think I should try to do a fact check on or whatever else might be good to do. But yeah, have a good night, everyone.
This debate will be on the podcast within 24 hours. You can find our guest links in the description box. Even if you disagree with them, folks, there's so much value.
Insomnia.
going to the
Yeah, well,
original-
my insomnia is like, yeah, when my cat is stolen, I hope my neighbors will write their senator and not bother calling police. Yeah.
Original source. Going and hearing it straight from the person. So highly encourage you. Check out both.
Well, it's like it's not even insomnia. I'm just like addicted to my phone, and I'm addicted to feeling like anxiety and depression. So like I just think about that all night, pretty much. I should try being addicted to Xanax. Then I could sleep all the time.
And Steven's links. Tip 35 says, Kim, can you think of a nation with a better form of government than the United States? If not, then isn't America one of the best nations to lead the world?
Yes, the United States is the best country on earth, and there is no other country with a better system than ours. And that is why we have to protect it, and we have to strengthen it, and we have to constantly work on our democracy. Otherwise, we can easily lose it. We cannot take it for granted. We have to understand that our system is delicate, that it is to be cherished, and it has to be protected. And that means democracy must be protected at all costs. And yeah, I do believe that America is the greatest country on earth, and we have the best system on earth.
Thank you very much. Folks, want to say thanks so much for tuning in. Click on Kim's and Steven's links. Hear it straight from them yourself. Want to say thank you very much, Steve and Kim. It's been a true pleasure to have you tonight.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
I'll be
Nice. What does my full cam look like? Okay. Just has the chat up. I don't know why all the chats are the same color. I don't like that. Every chat is orange. Every chat name. So if anyone knows how to fix that. Freestyle challenge viewers or other streamers. Good idea, Ali. Does Tom have his stream in a way that has different colors? Ali said hi from YouTube Shorts, Egghead. Just so you know. Yeah, I'll have to... Orange Supremacy. Donald Trump Fan Club. But yeah, if anyone knows how to fix that on Streamlabs, I don't know if I need to put in a certain CSS or HTML, whatever the internet terms are, if I need to change that to be random. But I don't like how it's all one color. And I know streaming it on YouTube is wonky with how it works, how chatting works. They don't have the same functions that Twitch does or anything. So Tom's does have different colors. I'll have to figure that out then. If anyone has any ideas, drop it in Discord. But anyways, have a good night. Nice to meet y'all. Ali, Egghead said hi. I'm glad I could connect you.